begins, I want to raise a matter that occurred yesterday, a disturbing incident outside this court. My team, that is my client, his partner, my instructing solicitor and others were about to, we had to wait for a taxi to accommodate us, so we were the last to leave. As we walked across the road outside the court, because the taxi was parked adjacent to the lawns on the other side, there was a large group of Aborigines began yelling out obscenities and, worse still, threats to kill my client. There was no police presence. This group became more threatening as we approached them, and they tried to block our access to the taxi.
I have been informed.
Moreover, Your Honour, the
of an
obscenities,
incident, and I have seen
well, Your Honour,
Mr. Abbott.
The obscenities, abuse and threats became louder, and the actions of some of those persons present constituted assaults on us. One woman attempted to strike me with her sandal as I was trying to get into the taxi, and this is obviously at least an attempt to intimidate my client in relation to his stay in the witness box and giving evidence. I might say, of course, he's not intimidated, but it obviously constitutes an attempt to intimidate a witness. The group was clearly in breach of
Mr.
section
Abbott,
46(3) of your Act.
Have you raised it with the police?
Yes, we have. Section 46(3) creates the offence of creating a disturbance or taking part in creating or continuing a disturbance in or near a place where an inquest is being held, and that is clearly what happened yesterday. And of course, had there been police, I assume they would have been arrested. But of course, there was no police presence. And I draw this to your attention because I have grave concerns now as we move further towards the events of 9/11/2019, that the activities of this group and others will increase, and I'm concerned about the safety of my client coming to and leaving these premises. And I'm concerned that attempts to intimidate him or threaten him will continue. And so I seek an assurance from you that you will direct your staff to make sure that our egress and access to this court is protected, and that we arrive here safely and we leave here safely, and that those who carry out these activities in breach of your Act, section 46(3), are arrested.
Well, I'm not sure that I can ensure that occurs, but clearly it's been brought to the attention of the police, and I assume that they will carry out their investigations appropriately.
Well,
however, I can say that if you are requesting additional security to enter and exit the premises, that is certainly something that I will inquire into, and I will let you know what arrangements have been made. Every witness is entitled to attend this court and feel safe to do so.
and free of intimidation.
And free from intimidation. They are required to attend under order of the court, and they must be able to attend freely without being intimidated or abused or harassed in any way. And I will certainly make inquiries and let you know as to the additional security that can be made available.
Well, moreover, they were yelling out, as I said, not just obscenities, which I won't detail, but threats in relation to kill my client. And, Your Honour, this can't go on. He can't turn up at court. And I'm concerned, as I said, as we proceed towards the events of the 9th of November, that the activities of this group or other groups may increase.
Your Honour, might I assist my learned friend in this way? Last week, in the lead up to the inquest, to ensure that Mr Rolfe felt safe and secure coming to court, which of course he is entitled to do, Superintendent Lee Morgan, the officer in charge of the inquest, emailed Mr Officer to ask whether there were any particular arrangements that could be made to make him feel safe. And that included, as I understand, trying to ascertain what vehicle Mr. Rolfe was coming in and any way that police might be able to assist. I'm instructed that there was no response to that email. I phoned Mr. Abbott myself last week to see if there was anything I could do to be of assistance to him or if there's anything that he wanted to talk about. I didn't receive a reply. Nobody contacted me last night to ask for any additional security arrangements. If they had done, I would have ensured I would have made every effort to ask Northern Territory Police to assist. I have no doubt at all that Dr. Freckleton would have done the same, and I have absolutely no doubt that the officers in charge of this inquest would have made every available attempt to assist Mr. Rolfe. He is absolutely entitled to feel safe coming to court and leaving court. We also last week informed his counsel and solicitor that there was an interview room that had been made available for him.
I wasn't informed.
I regret that your solicitor didn't tell you, Mr. Abbott, but Mr. Rolfe's legal team was informed of that, and the room was made available to him so that he could come in and use that yesterday. Last night I received no phone contact at all from Mr. Officer or Mr. Abbott, who both have my personal mobile. Mr. Officer has no difficulty contacting me when he would like to do so. So I invite them again to do that on any occasion when I can be of assistance. Because as counsel assisting Your Honour, it is very important to me, and I care, as does my legal team, as do our police officers assisting, that Mr. Rolfe and all witnesses feel safe attending court. So I'm more than happy to do anything I need to do or can do to assist him when he leaves court on any occasion.
One thing you can do, and that's chase up the photographers who were there and people with recording devices who were there yesterday, who have a record of exactly what happened and the way and the things that were said and the actions that were done towards us. So that's one thing you can usefully do, and perhaps get the evidence and present it to the police so that further steps can be taken.
It's not for counsel assisting to gather evidence about what occurred outside the courtroom and provide it to the police. The investigating police, who are now well aware of this incident, are more than capable of conducting their own investigations.
Your Honour, just before Mr. President rises, I need to respond to what Dr. Dwyer says about my engagement by communications with Superintendent Morgan. I did reply. I'm happy to provide emails to Your Honour. The effect of it was this. The request as to what Mr. Rolfe's movements might be. And I asked whether security had been ensured for Mr. Rolfe. I was told that there was no intelligence as to any concerns for Mr. Rolfe. I was happy with that at that time.
I'm sorry, Mr. Officer. Mr. Abbott has just left the courtroom.
Your Honour, yes, and the reason for that, which I can address, is he's got a brief court matter. The Chief Abbott should have told you, so he will be back. Your Honour, in addressing the emails, I wrote to Mr. Morgan, Superintendent Morgan, last night, making him aware of the incident and inquiring as to whether there be any additional police. I have engaged with Mr. Morgan previously in response to his emails when he said there was no intelligence as to risks. That's fine, we accept it on face value. Things happen. The room has been beneficial in the courtroom, but it happened to be that one of these incidents arose yesterday, so I did let Mr. Morgan know that.
Great. It sounds like it's...
Superintendent Morgan, and any time Mr. Officer would like to contact me for additional help, you only need to call.
It seems
just
to
before-
be in good hands.
I should also let Your Honour know that the police in advance have been well aware of the potential for tension and have been monitoring the situation. In addition, Acting Commander Atkin, who has been the contact point between the Rolfe family and the police, was in contact with Mr. Rolfe just last week on Wednesday, offering him any assistance and support that he wished. And that offer remains open from the Acting Commander.
Well, it does seem that we need to ensure that there is some additional security around the premises.
Yes.
And that should stay in place until Mr. Rolfe and his legal team have left the premises, and if there can be some communication about their arrival times that can be in place for that. And if anything else is required or deemed necessary, either let us know or let Superintendent Morgan know, and I'm sure it'll be accommodated, and if you have any concerns, Council Assisting can raise it with me.
Thank you.
Your Honour, I just neglected yesterday to mention that Miss Balch appears on the live stream for Officers Kirstenfeld and Nankerville.
Thank you. Yes,
Your Honour,
Ms Nobbs.
if I could just raise two matters, and they're in relation to some comments that were made yesterday by Dr. Peter Dwyer, Council Assisting, about the role of the association in this inquest. It appears that Council Assisting might have been suggesting that the association ought to or could have brought parts of the evidence to the attention of the individual witnesses. That's clearly inaccurate, as the association has clearly stated, and Your Honour has accepted in ruling number 1 that the association is the industrial voice for its members. The association is concerned with the conditions, welfare and working environment of its members. It is not and has never been free to prepare or advise individual members. We do not represent individual police officers at this inquest. Dr. Freckleton represents all the police officers with the exception that he has put on record.
Yes.
He advised the court yesterday that his client will be investigating allegations that made by Mr. Rolfe. How he resolves that conflict is a matter for him, but it is a matter that this court might want to be concerned about.
Oh, Your Honour, this has been a refrain for the duration of the inquest. Your Honour needs to know that those representing the individual officers in the Northern Territory Police Force have been attentive, as is their ethical responsibility, to any potential conflicts of interest and have attended to them in the proper and usual way. And the continued sniping and insinuations about this are unhelpful and deeply resented.
No, I was simply raising a matter that some allegations were made about members yesterday who were represented by Dr. Freckleton. That's a matter for him. He then went on to say that those matters would be investigated by his legal team.
No, not by his legal team.
No.
There was no suggestion that his legal team would be carrying out any investigations. That was not my understanding of the arrangements at all. I do not understand that to be the case.
Okay, that's what we heard. We don't have a transcript. And we do now.
In any event, that's not what I understood the intention to be at all. Rather that issues that were raised would be investigated in the normal way, not by legal teams assisting in this inquest.
Is it possible to have some information as to what the normal way of that investigation and under what powers that's been? Is it the coroner's investigation? Is it the police investigation?
At this stage, as I understand it, it is a police investigation, and that is as far as I am aware.
Thank you, Honour.
Dr. Dwyer.
Thank you, Your Honour. We're ready to begin if it pleases you, Honour. Mr. Rolfe, yesterday I was asking you about 2019. In that year, at the beginning of the year, you were run down and burnt out, weren't you?
At some points, yes.
You messaged Ruby, for example.
Yo.
Your Honour, might I ask for a non-publication order over the name of Ruby? I think yesterday I referred to her as as a female beginning with a name beginning with R.
Yes.
You messaged a friend to say, I'm run down and burnt out from work bullshit. That's text 21. You recall that?
Yeah, I don't have the text in front of me.
If,
But yes.
others do, so tell me if you want to see it. Text 22. Thank you. You messaged a family member to suggest that you were burnt out as fuck. You
Yes.
sent the same message to Sergeant Bowens, is that correct? That's message 24.
Yes.
So that's 3 people you were telling you were burnt out.
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how burnt out were you at that time?
That could, like, I'm not sure because those messages are over a 2-day period, but in that 2-day period, that seems like I was extremely burnt out.
All right, one of the people you tell is Sergeant Bowens.
Yeah.
You're 18 months or so into the police force, or 2 years, I think, into the police force. Was he sympathetic when you told him that you were burnt out? He appears to be from the text messages.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you have any more discussions with him about how to manage that burnout?
No. I believe at that point in time that might just been an issue of just having a few days off.
Did you ever speak to any of your superiors in the Northern Territory Police about how to manage burnout?
I don't believe I did.
Did you understand how to access psychological supports in the Northern Territory Police?
I was aware that we had psych support, yes.
Did you have any training about how to do that, or when were you first told about the psych supports?
We would have been told in recruit school.
You're someone who prided yourself on being fit and tough, and you talk in your diary about getting harder. Did you feel that you could reach out emotionally for psychological support, or was that not something that...
That probably wasn't on my radar at the time.
Do you think that, looking back, there's anything else that might have helped support you as a young officer in your career to deal with the burnout, the workload?
Yes.
What do you think?
I think I'll try to be quick. I think the way that the police are run, that we do the 7 months of police training and then we go on to however long your career is on the road. And if we look at one of the positives that potentially could be the militarisation of police is, for example, if we look at some of the units overseas, they might work on a rotation of 4-month deployment, 4-month rest, 4-month build-up. I'm not saying we use that, but I think something that needs to be thought about in preventing burnout for police is if you work on a basis where you are not on the road after your 6 or 7 months of training, and you don't go in from your 6 or 7 months training to potentially years and years on the road. If it's done in some form of rotation device process where you have these are random numbers, say 10 months on the road, 1 month of downtime, that could potentially be positive engagement with youth, for example, but no night shift, and then 1 month good retraining. I think something like that would prevent burnout.
One thing I'm going to ask you about later on is access to leave, or including sick leave. Was that discussed from pretty early on in your time?
Yes, I think the whole time I was in, we had unlimited. As long as you had a sick certificate, you had unlimited sick leave.
And were there a few jokes made around the station pretty early when you got to Alice Springs about using unlimited sick leave?
Yes, I guess there was the idea of people being malingerers, utilising sick leave when it wasn't necessary. But yeah, there was jokes, but it was mainly in that regard.
Was it thought to be, as a young officer, did you discover pretty soon after you arrived in Alice Springs that there was a percentage of Northern Territory police officers who were thought to be on milking the system, basically, the long-term sick leave system?
Yes.
And that left the rest of the officers who were there on the ground to have to do more and work harder to accommodate that. Is that the feeling?
Correct. But obviously, obviously some people on sick leave for proper purposes. There was the perception that some were malingering. But yes, that would leave more stress on the officers.
And you spoke frankly yesterday about the feeling about the PSC when you first arrived, that there was a suspicion, there was a view from the troops on the ground that they were going too hard, taking too long, being too punishing.
Yes.
And there was a perception, wasn't there, among some of the officers on the ground that if you got a complaint from the PSC, you go off on sick leave. That was one way to avoid it.
Yes, that came apparent in a job in the police force that I was in, that became very apparent. I guess that attitude progressed.
What do you think about that, looking to avoid that? Do you think that the Northern Territory Police Force needs to do something about this idea of unlimited sick leave that can be milked by a small percentage of officers?
I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it enough, to be honest.
Okay.
Unlimited sick leave is a wild thing. I haven't seen that before.
It's a wild thing that appears from your frank evidence to be abused by a small percentage of the Northern Territory Police Force, which makes it much harder for the guys and girls on the ground who are doing the hard work.
Correct.
Something needs to be done about that then.
Yeah, potentially.
Have you heard of the term compassion fatigue?
Yes.
Was that something that was discussed in the Northern Territory Police when you were there?
It may have been mentioned in police college, may have been mentioned, but it wasn't something that was discussed too much. But the boys and girls on the street, I think, were all aware of what that term is and may have been discussed, but not in those terms.
Is it fair? Is your understanding that compassion fatigue can happen when you experience vicarious trauma plus burnout?
Yes.
And do you think that happened to you at any points in your career in the Northern Territory Police Force?
Yes.
At what point do you think?
Well,
Throughout.
Throughout. I think we would always say as well, you're always the nicest on your first job of the shift, and then your compassion bucket starts emptying. So on a daily basis nearly, but in a larger sense, I can't tell you when and exactly.
Was there any training or support for you in the NT Police about how to manage, or I would draw that, was there any discussion in NT Police about managing compassion fatigue and understanding that?
Not that I can recall.
Do you think that would be helpful looking back for a young
Yes.
officer in that position?
Yes.
Did you have training days?
We did.
Were yours all IRT or were there other training days?
No, so I was able, due to IRT, luckily to get 2 training days per roster, where I had one for GDs and one for IRT.
And is burnout and compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma and access to counselling things that are covered in your training days on a regular basis?
When I was there, training days were very, they weren't very helpful. I can't even recall what we learnt or got trained in.
Do you think a focus on well-being as part of training days along with other things would be helpful or not?
No, definitely.
You gave evidence yesterday about the selection training you did for the TRG. Just to remind you, that was between the 26th of July and 3rd of August 2018, and you passed with flying colours. You
Yes.
expected to get a spot soon after that.
Yes.
And in February 2019, an email came through letting you know that yet again you'd missed out on another position at the TRG.
It was at second app or third. I believe I put 3. I'm just not sure of the
Yeah,
dates.
if you can have a look at text 50, that might assist you, and you can tell us whether this was the first or second or third. It's a text message to the person the friend whose name starts with R. Hey, just got the email literally just then. Didn't get the position, such a joke. Out of myself and the last 3 people to get TRG positions since I've been qualified, I'm the only one that passed selection with enough points to be encouraged to apply. They all just passed, so got eligible to apply, yet still haven't got the position. Fucking fuck, ha, ha. So was that, there were 3 positions before you that were filled, is that right?
I'm not sure completely. I'm just saying, I think, yeah, so I think I'm including myself and myself. Oh no, there's 4 people that have applied previously, and this might be my 3rd or 4th application, but I'm just not completely sure.
Sure, but a number of applications where you couldn't understand why people were getting in before you, when you were the only one who'd been encouraged to apply and you topped that group.
Yeah, so I became aware at this time, and it may have changed now, that the selection process for TRG, you pass your selection and you get scored and you get encouraged to apply, or eligible to apply, or not satisfactory. I was then informed that that point system, that tick in the box, that becomes a tick in the box. No matter what you got, no matter what points you got, I was informed that becomes a tick in the box, and your selection now goes not to your application goes not to TRG but goes to the regular promotion board. I don't know who that consists of, but the regular promotion board who see the tick in the box, they don't have the background of the point system or the merit of the selection. And then I guess they just don't use that merit system to inform their decision. But that's what I was told.
How did you find all that out?
From speaking to some of the boys in the unit, I think there's some text messages in there that inform me of that decision that they wanted me in the unit, but it wasn't up to them.
So you go on to text that same person, obviously not the end of the world, but it's pretty rude, so rude. And then text 51 is to a colleague. You just read that. You say, bro, no love from me from TRG. And that person texts back, lots of love on the floor, mate. You've just been fucked over by selections and the shit process. Don't let it get you down, mate. You'll get a job in there this year. Who was that to?
That was a member in the unit.
Member in the TRG unit?
Yes.
So you were communicating with a member in the TRG unit who was saying, you've been fucked over by selection process, but hang in there.
Yes.
And then did you make further inquiries about why it is that you hadn't got the position at that time?
No, I think on my second application, I made inquiries and found out about that process.
Did you subsequently find out that, in fact, one of the things that selectors were looking for is experience out bush?
Yes, I believe so.
But that was not something you wanted to do?
No, it wasn't.
And you resented that?
Yeah, I did. Yes. I didn't see how that would assist in the tactical team sense.
You couldn't see any value in a tactical sense in understanding community engagement?
No, that's not what I was saying, no.
No, that's not what you were saying?
Yeah.
Well, why couldn't you see any value in
it seemed that the selection process, the selection criteria for the tactical team was basically the same selection criteria for other promotions in regular policing scenarios, such as regular promotions and stuff like that. I thought that if you're applying for a tactical team, the selection criteria should probably be more specified to a tactical unit rather than, say, a promotion to a bush sergeant role or another role. But this is my understanding, and I could be wrong on the whole selection process.
Did you ever ask anybody for an explanation? Why is it that you want me to get more experience in community or to demonstrate understanding of bush community before I get into the team?
There was a discussion, yes.
Were you told?
Basically, from the people I spoke to, everyone had the same opinion as me, that it didn't seem relevant, or that it was just, I'm not sure, maybe the police have always needed numbers out bush. So maybe it's a carrot to get people out bush in order to get promotions.
You thought it was stupid?
I thought it wasn't a relevant selection criteria.
And so did the guys in the TRG that you're corresponding with, is that right?
Yes.
And what about your sergeants back, Bowens and Kirby? They thought the same thing as you, didn't they?
I can't recall any specific conversations with those two,
Okay.
but general conversations. I haven't had a single conversation where someone said, hey, yes, bush is a very good thing to do before applying for TRG.
So as far as you were concerned, your comrades, including those two sergeants, Kirby and Bowens, were backing you up in thinking that was not a relevant criteria and you were right?
Kirkby, yes. I can't recall any conversation with Sergeant Bowles, so I don't want to put him in that.
Okay, I'll take you to your conversation with Kirby in a second.
Yeah.
A couple of days after you got the news that you were locked back by TRG, you were involved in a job in Arulan Park. Remember that?
With the two men?
Yes, 18th of February 2019. You just watch a video from that now.
Your Honour, I rise and should note for the record, despite your Honour's earlier rulings, we do object to this being played to Mr Rolfe for the same reasons articulated with the Master G situation. It has no relevance to the court circumstance of death, which is the subject of your inquiry, or the events on 1 November 2019.
I think I've already ruled on that.
Yeah, Your Honour, I just simply note that for the record.
Ding. Fucking Bane.
Germany.
Look at that. Take blood from that real easy. Get 'em, boys. Bullets. Oh, bullets. Hold on. That is your hat.
Whose body-worn video footage is that, Mr. Roll?
I believe just before I answer, I might need I don't know if I got a certificate for.
A certificate has been granted for each of these
I didn't raise that
incidents.
as an objection because I think every use of force matter we have put in our submissions at paragraph 22, Your Honour accepted and agreed without objection from
Yes.
the capital system that it covers all.
It covers all use
Sorry,
of
I'm
force
not
matters
talking about
and
use of
all
force.
issues arising from use of force.
Yes, Your Honour.
Yes.
And perhaps what should be also included, which we referenced in the submissions as well, is the recording of and or dissemination of body-worn video. It had been put that it potentially was in confidential information territory, which the recording of and dissemination of might be an offence, so the certificate should cover any question that goes to that topic or subject.
Yes.
If it's not clear already from the terms of times of legal, yes, it's clear that the certificate cover offences and protecting.
The certificate will be reduced to writing.
Yes.
I'm proposing one certificate to cover all the
Everything.
different issues, and perhaps we can do that and just make sure everything that everyone understands is covered
Yes,
is
Your
in fact covered.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Roll, whose body-worn video is that footage?
That's mine.
And how did it come to be on your telephone?
I recorded that in the muster room.
So you played the body-worn video in the muster room in front of other officers, is that right?
Yes.
And then you filmed it on your phone.
Yes.
You understood at the time that that was a breach of the rules of confidentiality.
Yes, I did.
You understood that that was important evidence that had been collected on your body-worn video.
Yes, I did.
And your reason for filming it on your phone was for a laugh to play it back later on, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
What do you think about that conduct?
Yeah, it's completely unprofessional and I have no excuse for that.
How often did you do that sort of stuff? You filmed your body-worn video and then played it back as a laugh.
I filmed my body worn a number of times. I've sent and received a number of body worn videos from a number of police officers. I wouldn't say it was common practice, but it occurred in the muster room. You can see that I'm not trying to hide that.
Could you speak up a bit?
Yeah, sorry about that. Do you want me to repeat that?
Yeah, you can.
I was saying I have recorded my body worn video a number of times, sent and received body worn from other officers a number of times. It was a practice that was common enough that I didn't need to hide it in the muster room. So common enough, but not common. But yes.
So before you did it, had any of your colleagues done it?
Yes.
So it was a practice you were introduced to effectively, is that right?
Yes.
So amongst your patrol group, was it common to do it?
I wouldn't say it was particularly amongst my patrol group. Again, I think if the body worn that I've received should be in my messages if it shows up as an image or a video file. I haven't gone through all of it, so that should be in the bundle. So I can't talk about who did it, but the messages should be in here.
Were there sergeants who were also receiving body-worn video?
I can't specifically recall sending them to sergeants.
Did you ever receive any from sergeants?
I would need to get shown in my text.
So was it mostly circulating between the probationary constables and constables?
I wouldn't say that. I would say probationary constables, detectives. Yes.
So you would send some of your videos to detectives?
Again, I don't want to, if it's in the text messages, I've received some body-worn video from detectives.
For a laugh? Like, were they sending you body-worn video to show you a funny thing that had happened or a tough tactical manoeuvre for?
So there's different. So if you've seen in my text bundle, the fact that a body-worn video has been sent to me is not necessarily for a laugh. Yes, that has been the case sometimes. Sometimes it is for information purposes on the job, such as providing me intel on a job to locate someone or a lot of us didn't have work phones. We had work iPads, which a bit. We used our personal phones for work sometimes, is what I'm saying. So sometimes, yes, laugh. Sometimes, work purposes.
Sometimes it was to celebrate a tough tactical manoeuvre, wasn't it? To where if you thought that you or your colleagues had gone in hard and done something tough and heroic, you would film that back and then play it.
I wouldn't know if tough or heroic is the right word, but I wouldn't say tough or heroic, but there's many reasons someone might send a body worn video, but that could encompass them.
But one of them was for fun.
Yes.
You've given evidence at trial about your training on the use of force principles. And
Yes.
I don't want to have to labour the same evidence that you've given, but it's safe to say, isn't it, that it's very clear when you are trained that you need to avoid confrontation as much as reasonably possible,
Yes.
that you need to avoid the use of force wherever reasonably possible,
Yes.
and that where force can't be avoided, then the minimum force reasonably necessary and justifiable must be used.
Yes.
When you think back on this incident at the Arulan Park, you didn't comply with those use of force principles, did you?
I do disagree on that.
Well, we'll play the actual video for that now, and then I'll ask you again. No, I played the body one.
Oh, the action.
This is a 6 or 7 minute video.
Hey, mate.
That is your hat. Stay on the ground. Stay on the ground. Sit here. Sit here.
Don't get up, mate.
Don't get up. Sit on the ground, my man. Sit on the ground, my man. Stay on the ground. Stay on the ground. Stay on the ground. Okay, but stay on the ground. Do it later.
Do it from the ground.
Stay on the ground.
Oi!
We'll PC them both. PC them both.
What's going on, mate?
VKM 451. We're at the Arulan Park opposite the hostel. Can we get another cage here? We just have 2 minutes
Have you got
fighting.
your wallet
We're
in your
gonna
pocket?
take it
I got him. Give me a look.
Roger, I've got another cage to use at Arulan Park
Give me a look.
opposite Which Hospital, Adam?
Oh, fella.
I think you're bringing it, but it's next to the art centre.
David, is that your name?
Roger.
Hey, neither of them are in trouble. They're just gonna go away for a bit.
I never been more wrong than me.
Why didn't you guys stop the
crippled.
fight?
Fucking asshole. Wait.
Hey, stay on the ground, David.
They were going to settle down. They didn't settle down even after we rocked up.
There's a fucking man.
What were you guys fighting about? You were winning the fight, mate.
I'm crippled. No, I'm
Just my camera's on, boys, by the way.
Yeah. Hey, you
I'm
alright?
crippled. I'm right.
You're alright.
Hey, punch me now.
I know.
Damn, he punched you.
I'm crippled.
That was bad.
All right.
Hey, we're gonna take you both to watch house, probably just under protective custody.
Alice 537 BKM.
We're gonna take them to hospital, probably.
So they're sick and you're gonna let them fight.
Hey, they shouldn't fight in public, eh? But they shouldn't fight. And you guys could have stood up and did your. You guys could have just stood up and did their job. I was looking after them. I was protecting them.
Roger, they're at Arulan Park near the art centre, over.
Hey,
What's up, David?
I'm sick, man.
What are you sick from?
Yeah, from...
It's called being puffed out from fighting. That's what it
I
is.
lost my tablet.
You lost your tablet.
Yeah.
What kind of tablets do you take, David?
Get his tablets or something. Is that what were you fighting
I'm
about?
fucking sick one.
David, where's your tablets?
I lost my tablet.
Where are they?
The pop.
In the bush?
Not here, pop. I showed that pop.
Where? At the pub?
Where I got him.
Did you get them from the doctor?
Yeah, I couldn't get him.
We got a nurse. We'll find out what tablets you got.
I couldn't get him, but Get away from
With your sleeping kit?
Congress.
Congress.
And Jack Block and Jack away. Bonus.
He did.
No, that work block.
Oh,
White block.
we'll get you some more, eh?
Yeah.
You want some more?
I want to move.
We'll get you some more.
I got a here.
We'll get you some more tablets.
I got a segment.
Alright, we'll get you some more tablets, mate.
Yeah.
We've got a nurse at the watch house.
I got it. So, I got in there. Getting it wrong.
Yeah, mate. We'll get you some more tablets.
You don't. I'm sick, man.
I know. Sometimes I get sick. We were just talking about it before. I got the flu.
Now that
Got
block
the flu
behind him
last
way.
year.
Passion fatigue.
Yeah.
Hey, that block behind him way.
Which bloke? The white dude?
Yeah, what fella?
Who is he?
Yes, they workshop.
What's his name?
Where's that place?
Does he hang out here?
Oh, you have tablet. Take one.
Yeah, where does this fella hang out?
Get up.
I'm sick, man.
Hey, David, just sit down there, eh?
Yep.
What kind of sick are you, David?
I want to buy that.
Miss, you got a leaf in your hair.
Tablet.
Oh, no, it's a rubber band. What's going on, miss?
Don't get silly, Andy.
Nah, you're right.
This guy might need to go to the hospital.
I just checked. He's got no
Yeah.
This one.
Oh, what is that one?
I gotta go.
Hold on to it, mate.
You beat me.
Yeah.
You give me. Nah, don't give me, huh?
What was the fight between you guys about? It was good to see you all boys strapped
No.
out.
Good job.
Nah, I'm right.
Silly with weapons.
Hey, where you sleep here, eh, David? You sleep here?
Nah, I stopped in here. Long way.
You stopped long grass?
I sleep in here.
At the hostel?
Nah, my son.
Whereabouts?
I'm stopping there. Long way.
Where are you stopping?
My son.
Where do you stop, mate? Where do you sleep?
Hey.
Where do you sleep?
I'm living it. Fucking that.
The hostel?
Yeah, that's fine. No, fucking that.
Oh, the hill. Near Morris Oaks.
You know. I stop on a thing hill. Yeah, when I jump up.
Hey, is that your hat?
I'm right. I can mother.
Oh, we're going to take them maybe to hospital or to the watch house for a sleep.
No. Stay here.
Yeah, you're not staying here, mate.
I stop in here.
You'll keep
I gotta
biffing.
go.
You'll keep biffing.
This one make me fucking hot. And I'm cold.
David, just sit on the ground for a little bit longer.
I'm right.
You up.
Bala.
Yeah, Palia.
These guys are happy to look after him.
Oh,
But I think
David.
we'll take this guy to hospital.
we're going to leave you here, all right?
Yeah, leave. I'm going back. Alright.
Might have to give him an infringement just to justify the use of force.
Oh, yeah.
We'll give them both an infringement. I got an iPad in the car to give one up. Hey, don't stand up. David, we're going to leave you here, but I'm going to give you a ticket.
I'll leave here.
We're going to leave you here, but I need your ID again. Thanks, mate. I'm just going to write up a ticket for you.
I'm not mad one.
I know, but I got it because you were fighting in public.
Policeman know me.
I know, mate. We're going to leave you here, but I'm going to give you a ticket.
Where you living?
I'll be back in a sec. I'll be back.
Might just have to give him an infringement just to justify the use of force. There was no need to use force in that interaction with those two men, was there?
I disagree.
Why did you use the words might have to give him an infringement just to justify the use of force? They're your words.
Well, I guess that's an administrative issue.
You used, I suggest to you, that terminology because you knew that there were other ways when you should have dealt with that conflict?
No.
They were two men who were clearly intoxicated, arguing on the Arulan Park lawns, weren't they?
They were physically fighting.
They were swinging big haymakers at each other and not connecting.
They were
Okay?
physically fighting.
Can you listen to my question? They were physically fighting, sure, but
Yes.
they were swinging haymakers and not connecting because they were drunk and staggering.
Look. They were fighting.
What you suggest to you should have done if you were following the force principles that you were trained in is to approach those gentlemen and use verbal commands before you ever attempted to push them over.
I believe we arrived in blue lights, lights and sirens. Probably turned the sirens off before we got out of the car. Announced our presence. Our presence hadn't stopped them fighting, and then I used the minimum force necessary to stop that.
You announced your presence as you're running towards them and pushing them over, don't you?
I didn't run at all.
You walked quickly towards them and pushed them over. Is that fair?
I'm not sure how fast I walked, but I walked.
And were you trained to use verbal commands before you moved to physical force?
Yes, if practical.
Do you think, looking back on that, you could have used verbal commands instead of moving to physical force?
I think there are many ways, looking back in hindsight, how you can handle the situation better, and I could always handle the situation better. Definitely that, and use of force is never going to look good. That situation was resolved, again, extremely efficiently and quickly, as we was encouraged in Alice Springs to resolve situations as fast as possible. And it may not look good, but pushing two men onto soft grass is a very low level use of force, and it can be confronting for people who are not used to confronting violence on a daily basis.
When you look back in hindsight as a more mature man, do you think that you would deal with that differently now?
Potentially, depending on the circumstances surrounding.
Because I appreciate that what we see there, played the full video in fairness to you, is you speaking to those community members, asking him about why if he felt unwell and where his tablets were, etc., and trying to have a dialogue. You understand that the people you were speaking to might not actually speak your language? Or English might be a second or third or fourth language?
Your Honour, object what's the relevance of that question? He's engaged with them, he's played the footage. Is there a question on what he said to them? Because they
Well,
clearly...
the question is, did he consider whether or not they might not speak English?
What's the relevance of the question?
Oh, perhaps if my learner friend could just give me a little bit of leeway, I'll keep going and it'll be much quicker.
And perhaps ask him what information or intel he had prior to arriving at the Joggles.
You can re-examine, Mr. Officer, if I miss anything. Mr. Rolfe, did you consider, when you're speaking to community members, that English might be a second, third, or fourth language?
I guess when I can speak to anyone, I consider whether English might be their second, third language.
Well, you're not just speaking to anyone, you're speaking to Aboriginal community members on the law. It's a fair guess, isn't it, that English might not be their first language?
I'm not sure.
Did you consider that they might find it very confronting that they had just been pushed over by you?
I actually don't think they'd find that confronting at all, considering they were fighting in public.
One of them had to then go to hospital for a heart condition, didn't they?
I'm not sure on the outcome of that. It's likely that I took him to hospital, yes.
Can I suggest to you that there is a real difficulty in terms of building good community relations and asking Aboriginal people to trust police if they are treated with force when verbal commands would be equally effective?
Or could be?
Or could be. Do you accept that?
Well, I'm not sure how you would ever find a situation where you know for a fact that use of force and verbal commands would be equally as effective.
Sure. Your training is to use verbal commands first before you move to use of force, isn't it?
Correct, if practical.
And what I suggest to you is in this incident, you did not make sufficient effort to use your verbal commands before you moved to use of force.
I admit I could always do better.
And there's a pattern of it, isn't there, Mr. Rolfe, where you go straight to the use of force rather than exercising verbal commands.
I wouldn't call
I object to the word pattern.
Yeah.
Each and every
It's a
single,
question.
each and every single use of force will be different. Yesterday, Mr. Rolfe was cross-examined about his lack of appropriate tone with Master G. Now he's being cross-examined about whether or not he knew or thinks about their language being first, second, third as English.
Mr. Rolfs had an opportunity to look at all of these videos and to be well aware of the issues that are going to be covered concerning his use of force. He's being asked whether or not that was a pattern of behaviour. He is quite capable of understanding and answering that question.
Yes, I'm not saying he's not incapable of answering. I'm saying the question is irrelevant and whether or not this witness should offer, whether he has a pattern balanced against 46 jobs, 3,176 tasks.
Well, I'm sure he'll be able to answer that question, Mr. Officer. Sure.
Was there a pattern, Mr.
No, I'd say quite the opposite. Out of 3,176 jobs, if you have 46 jobs of use of force, and out of them, amongst everyone here, let's say 8 jobs that are being talked about, the actual pattern is that I have 3,168 jobs where I haven't used any issue. There's no issues in how I've acted. So the pattern is 3,168 versus potentially 8.
Well, let's get real. The 3,168, many of those you're attending to, say, domestic violence matters where there is no issue with you arresting a perpetrator. Well, DV might be something else, but many of those matters that you're going to, the 3,168, then might not be an arrest.
Neither was that.
And many of the matters that you attended, you didn't have your body-worn video on for. Is that fair?
Pardon?
Many of those matters you attended, you did not put your body-worn video on.
Yeah, correct.
It's fair to say, isn't it, that the part of the job that you enjoyed most were high-risk arrests, high adrenaline rides, that sort of stuff?
The parts of the job I enjoyed the most, as I said, yes, I was helping people that needed help.
This is what you text 56 on the 27th of February, so just a week or so after Arulan. Just searching for a dude who stole a ute with a loaded rifle in it, man. Still looking, big desert out here to hide in, but still fun though, hey. Text 58, same day. You texted to your police officer friend Sykes. Hurry up and come down, bro. I literally do whatever I want. Even just started wearing a t-shirt to work. Text 65. You texted to a friend the next day. I'm in a semi-tac team down in Alice because TRG is too far away to be of any use. But I've passed TRG selection, just waiting for a spot to open up A. So I just do general duties, and whenever something high risk is on, just do our own thing. That suited you, didn't it? Doing your own thing, not having to play by the rules?
I think no, I don't think. I know this is a comparison between my previous career in the army, where the rules in the army were every second of my day was kind of controlled. I wasn't able to walk on the grass, couldn't put my hands in my pocket. I needed to go to the toilet, I had to do something, how I shaved, there's a rule for that. How I wake up, there's a rule for that. How I go to bed, there's a rule for that. So in comparison to the rules I had in the army, there is a lack of rules in the police, but that's just because there's an abundance of rules in the army. So it's a comparative.
Sure, I appreciate that, but it wasn't just about comparing the rules in the army to the rules in the police. It was about comparing the rules in the police in Alice Springs, which were loose where you were, to rules that you might find in other police stations.
I haven't worked in any other police stations.
Have a look at text 69. You're texting someone there. Is that an old army buddy?
Yes.
And your message is to him, fuck, I'm jealous. That person's in Perth, is that right?
Yes.
In this police force in Perth?
I believe so.
And you say, fuck, I'm jealous. Perth is sick. Alice sucks. Alice Springs sucks. Ha ha. The good thing is it's like the Wild West and fuck all rules in the job, really. But it's a shithole. Good to start here because of the volume of work, but will be good to leave. Same friend, text 72. Text back to you, mate, everyone's going to be a cop, ha ha. because you've just told him that Sykes will finish his cop school in Darwin soon and hopefully come down, and hopefully Carter gets into cop school in October. Then we can all one day be friends again, ha, and it'd be so sick to all work together over in Perth. And he says, mate, everyone's going to be a cop, ha. Fuck yeah, Sykes will kill it. Yeah, dude, may as well get some cowboy shit done before coming to a city. You knew in a city like Perth you'd have to follow the rules and you'd be watched, but you could do things a little bit looser in Alice Springs, couldn't you?
I'm not sure if I had any information in regards specifically to Perth, but Alice Springs was a loose city, yes.
And you were loose with the rules in Alice Springs, not just you, but you and your cohort.
I don't agree that I was loose with the rules. I followed the rules, but in comparison to the army, there was very few rules.
Can I suggest to you that you followed some of the rules that suited you, but you didn't follow all the rules, did you?
No, that is correct to say. Yes, I did obviously breach the body-worn video rule we were talking about before.
And you breached the rule about not sending your body-worn video footage to other people.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I was,
Okay.
yeah.
And you breached the rule about not turning your body-worn video on sometimes, not
Yes.
just you, but others in the cohort.
Yes.
And you and others in your cohort, when you resented the authority of the bosses, superintendents, the brass, didn't follow their rules, did you?
No, I don't agree with that. And I'd probably, if you don't mind clarifying really quickly about my comment about Jody Nobbs yesterday, in 2019, before I left the force, I definitely had a high level of respect for him as a police officer, as a superintendent. Due to my comment yesterday came from due to my, I guess, the magnifying glass on me and my life in the last 4 years. That prompted me to put that magnifying glass on other people involved in this case. And then that's where that comment came from.
You resent the evidence he's given in this inquest.
I couldn't say resent.
And that's a question.
No, it's more about other things.
I just didn't hear that.
No.
It's
more
about other things, sorry.
things.
Thank you.
You want to tell Her Honour about other things that you found out about Superintendent Nobbs because you're angry that he gave evidence that didn't suit you in the inquest, is that right?
No, all I'm talking about is that I've been made aware of, obviously I've looked at the people that have passed judgment on me, and I've looked at where they're giving me judgment from, and seen things of their complaint history, for example. So all you guys would have to do is to find better information from the police team on their complaint history. That's all I'm saying.
Are you bringing that up as retribution for evidence that's been given against you in this inquest?
No, I'm just giving you information about my comment yesterday, where that came from, to say that I did respect him as a police officer in 2019.
Okay. Can you have a look at text 79, please? You're texting your friend whose name starts with R.
Yes.
Second part of that, my week's been good. When we get high-risk jobs, I get to really do my own thing. Got the chopper ride and took the superintendent's car out because it's not a marked police car, and got in the maddest pursuit through the desert with it. It's not built for it, the poor car, it'll never be the same, but I had a mad time, ha. Whose car was it?
I believe that was Superintendent Vickery's at the time. Not her, obviously, her personal car, but the car issued to her, and that was given with permission from the bosses to utilise that. I can't recall it, but it would be that we can't just take out a superintendent's car. We don't have the access to the keys. That was given to us.
Well, that was good fun, was it?
Yeah, it was. We definitely didn't get anywhere close to the car, but we had a good drive in the desert.
And you rode off the car, is that right?
Definitely didn't ride it off.
Was never going to be the same again.
It's probably not going to be the same.
Did Superintendent Vickery give you the permission to use the car?
She may have.
Here's what you wrote to Nat King about that. Is he another police officer?
Oh, he's a civilian.
Is he somebody that you were in the army with?
Can we get an MPO and then, like everyone else, civilians?
That person's civilian. The standing understanding I had was that civilians weren't named
It's
for the interim. The police officers was different.
Yes,
And
that's my understanding.
Unless there's a reason for us to be
Yes.
named, then yes, Your Honour, I'm content for a non-publication order over that now.
Thank you.
(224) Was this person, I'll just use his initials, MK, was that person someone you'd been in the army with?
Yes.
And you message him on the 28th of April, dude, I got in the most wild pursuit the other night. I was chasing this 40-year-old white ice dealer for like 3 days because he took a machete to somewhere. Then saw him driving around town. It was like Bad Boys. We were driving wrong side of the road through red lights at like 130 kilometres per hour. Ha-ha, was sick. Then he tried to run and bashed him. Needless to say, I'm being investigated for it. Ha-ha, ha-ha. But it was fun. But was fun. Who did you bash?
No, that's just a overzealous term. There's a
sorry, to which term?
overzealous. I'm just talking shit with my mate. This person did. Let me think of his name. His name will come to me.
You don't have to name the offender, but it's the offender there or the alleged offender who you say that you bashed.
Correct, and we didn't beat him up. He did resist arrest and he did receive injuries. There was a number of police officers involved in that. I believe there was upwards of 5 police vehicles involved in that, and it was investigated. And all the police officers involved, there may have been more police vehicles involved, detectives and general duties. We breached a number of the general orders rules, and we received remedial guidance for it. It was, I believe, it was a lot on footage.
What did you call in the pursuit?
Yes, the pursuit was
What
called
were the
in.
orders of the general? What were the general orders that you breached?
I can't recall. There was amongst the 5 or 6 or more so police vehicles involved. There was breaches amongst all of them.
Who was the superintendent who was on that job?
I wouldn't know.
Was a superintendent responsible for terminating the job, terminating the pursuit?
I've been out too long to know the ins and outs.
Do you remember being annoyed when the pursuit was terminated?
I don't think that pursuit was terminated.
Have a look at text 74, this might be another pursuit. I referred you earlier to 72 where your mate had said, yeah dude, may as well get some cowboy shit done there before coming into the city. And then the same day, 28th of February 2019, sorry, it doesn't look like it didn't pursue. Mark Sykes texts you, did you get him? Nah, not yet. Looks like he went to a community, laying low. Would have been sick to grab him. We were in a mad pursuit with him out bush, but the superintendent terminated it because he was, quote, inside our cordon in the middle of nowhere. She's an idiot. So that's a pursuit in February. Who was that superintendent you're talking about?
I'm not sure. It could have been Superintendent Vickery.
You're writing there to Mark Sykes, another police officer at that stage?
Yes.
You're calling your superintendent an idiot?
Yes.
Do you think that's appropriate for a young officer?
In private conversation, I believe private conversations are a different thing. I wouldn't say that language publicly or in a professional sense, no. But in private, I believe you should be able to say what you want.
Well, actually, you criticised Superintendent Vickery and other bosses to other junior police officers on a pretty regular basis, didn't you?
Privately?
Yep. Other police officers.
Privately, though. Yeah, but privately, potentially, yes.
See, there's a hierarchy in the police force, in the Northern Territory, and every police force is in there.
Yes.
You're still pretty new on the ground when you're 2 years in, I feel.
Yes, but by 2 years in, I had done nearly double the jobs that Pauline Vickery had attended in her career.
So you're supposed to follow rules as a young constable. You accept that?
Yes.
But it's hard for you to follow the rules if you don't respect who's setting them for you. Is that fair?
It depends what rules they're because they're not generally setting the rules of bike. There's different rules that they set.
Well, it's hard for you to follow any rules if you don't respect the reason for the rules. Is that fair?
I guess it makes it harder, yes.
That's the case about the body worn video that you explained to us in terms of turning it on.
Yes.
That's the case in terms of filming the body worn video, showing it to your mates or sending it.
Yes.
And that's the case in terms of respecting a superintendent's decision to call off a pursuit or to do anything else.
Oh, no, that was a particular incident when we're in the desert and the desert out near the airport with maybe 3 police vehicles. And I think there's been a lot of evidence about what a cordon is. And we're in a large open space, kilometres wide, and you don't have a cordon with 3 police vehicles in the desert. So that's a specific incident about...
You thought that the pursuit should continue and it was terminated?
I thought in that incident it was the safest area for a pursuit because you're out of town, you have no risk of civilians or other vehicles being damaged or hurt or death to another civilian. So the safest place for a pursuit is probably out of town, away from civilians.
Did you ever ask Superintendent Vickery or anybody else to explain those rules to you so that you understood it more rather than just complaining about it to your mates?
Yes.
Did she ever do that?
No, sorry, anyone else. I didn't ask her particularly.
Okay. Who did you ask?
I can't tell you names of people on the ground, and people on the ground had the same opinion about the safest place for pursuit being outside of town.
So people on the ground thought that Superintendent Vickery was an idiot too?
No, people on the ground thought that the safest place for pursuit was probably outside of town.
Is it fair to say, just thinking back on it, that people on the ground who you were working with didn't have much respect for her rules?
I don't think she had any particular rules that she owned.
Didn't have much respect for her?
It's hard to say. Conversations that have occurred about Pauline Vickery was she was a superintendent in charge of a general duties police station, and the conversations were that she had a lack of general duties experience.
So it was difficult for you to respect her in those circumstances? Let's be frank about it.
I'm just thinking. Look, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of experience in a certain role to be good at that role. You can excel, obviously. But I guess if there are issues in your performance and then you look at your experience, it adds to the issues, yes.
So in terms of 2 senior people in Alice Springs Police Force who you didn't have much time for, fair to say one of them was Vickery and another one was Virginia Reid?
The only dealings I had with Virginia Reid were in that first couple weeks. I don't think I had any professional dealings with her in actual jobs.
All right, so
I don't think so.
You've given us, I'll come back to Ms Reid, Superintendent Reid at a subsequent date, but I think you gave evidence yesterday. Your first interaction with her was not a positive one. It was about the rescue from the flood.
Correct.
And then, so you didn't have a positive opinion of her, correct?
Correct.
And then you didn't have a positive opinion of Pauline Vickery either, did you?
It became more positive towards the end. Superintendent Vickery and I believe towards the end of my time in the NT Police, we got along well, and there was a level of respect between the both of us. But initially, yes.
Did she ever talk to you about your excessive use of force or concerns about that?
I don't recall.
Okay. Did she ever talk to you about the Malcolm Ryder incident after that went to hearing in May 2019?
I honestly don't recall if she ever said anything to me about that.
Around the same time, I took you to a text message on the 28th of February with Mark Sykes, another police officer, about that pursuit. And there are a number of people who you were messaging around that time about searching for this dude in the desert, and it was fun. And the same day, you text 28th of February, text your mate in Perth Police to say it's the Wild West and fuck all rules in the job. Around the same time you're sending those texts, it seems that you are frustrated with work from the messages that you're sending to your family. Is that fair?
That's fair. I had moments of frustration for sure, and they'll be more stark than the moments of positivity, but there are definitely moments of frustration, yes.
Text number 80. You text your mum.
Yes, I look, I admit I was having a lot of hard time. I don't know if it's necessary to delve into such personal messages in regard to a shooting,
Your
a
Honour,
police shooting.
can I signpost an objection to this? Another similar message was in this document between my client and his mother. They are deeply personal messages and really are irrelevant to Your Honour's inquiry about what he and his mother were engaging in.
When I press the message, I don't press that it was sent to his mother, but just that sent to a family member.
If you're looking at the last line,
Sorry, just hold on for a second.
happy with that.
Your Honour, my objection is not so much as to who the recipient is, it's the content of it.
Well, the content's relevant, isn't it? Because it's about his state of mind and how he's behaving.
Your Honour, those sorts of propositions can be put to the witness about how he thought, how he felt, as counsel assistant has done on a number of occasions. To delve into the history of what he and his mother discussed on a completely intimately personal and private way, as a mother and son have, is irrelevant to Your Honour's task.
It's relevant to this extent that it is contemporaneous and it is likely to be truthful given the nature of the discussion. So in my view, there is a relevance here.
Your Honour, it might be contemporaneous, and it might be that the fact it's the truth of the matter. The fact that he engages in these conversations with his family members and his mother in a personal capacity, as he has said in evidence already, these are private texts, is completely irrelevant. The private expression between he and his mother is completely irrelevant. Themes that emerge from there might be properly put, such as did you feel X, did you feel Y, what did you do about X, what did you do about Y, but to go through chapter and verse, messages between he and his mother, the very private content, my respectful submission is irrelevant. You shouldn't do that.
I press the question, Your Honour. Once it's accepted that the proposition can be put and that the theme is relevant, then it doesn't make any sense that a contemporaneous record wouldn't be put.
Yes, in my view, it is a contemporaneous record, and it is the contents are potentially relevant, and the fact that it is a contemporaneous record, and the nature of the record is relevant to assessing what weight should be given to it.
Mr. Roth, part of that text message starts, feel like instead of knowing everything's going to be sweet, I'm waiting for the next shitty thing to happen, which is fine, I know, because everything takes time. But I feel like I put more effort in than most to get where I feel I deserve, but I get shat on a bit more. I just don't want all this shit to build up until I do something dumb. Full why I don't go out to the pubs here, because I know if some scum pushes me, I'll go too far and get into trouble. It seems from these texts that at the same time that you're talking up the high adrenaline stunts, things inside your head are not going so well. Is that fair?
There were moments of that, yes, for sure.
You were miserable. This is sent on the 1st of March 2019.
At some points,
And
definitely.
you had a short fuse.
Yes, at some points my fuse was short.
And that impacted on your policing.
I don't think so. I am very good at compartmentalising my personal life from my professional life, and I think at work I continue to perform to a professional standard.
For why I don't go out to pubs here, because I know if some scum pushes me, I'll go too far and get into trouble, suggests that you're explaining to your mum that you have a lack of control if someone pushes your buttons.
I mean, if someone assaults me, assault's a very common occurrence as an Alice.
By March 2019, you've been policing for just over 2 years, and the majority of those people who you were coming into contact with to arrest or in a policing environment were Aboriginal.
Yes.
You hadn't had any time relieving out bush,
No.
and you told us on a number of occasions you weren't interested in bush work.
Yes.
Do you think your attitude to Aboriginal people you came into contact with in the police environment deteriorated between the December 2016 when you started through to March 2019?
No, not at all.
On the 9th of March 2019, you text Danielle Cooper.
Yo, let's fucking figure this out, yeah?
Excuse me,
Sorry, there's civilians, Your Honour.
Your Honour, the ruling that has...
there is a ruling that is in place that there is to be no further publication. Please just listen to the questions, and your lawyer is here to ensure if there needs to be any objections, that those objections will be made.
Yes, Your Honour, sorry for that, but this isn't a live stream.
Your Honour, it was just the expectation that the witness can be taken to the message, the line, rather than rushing into the message to say it went to this person and this is the content. Your Honour has been put on notice that objections might be taken to message by message, as also who can be named and who cannot be named. So I think we just need to slow down the process a bit so this doesn't happen, so they can be referred to by their initials.
Sure. Let's try and refer to the message by its number first,
Yes.
so that if there is any issues,
Consistent with your ruling yesterday, Your Honour.
yes, Mr Abbott or Mr Officer can rise.
Text number 90, Mr Rod.
Yes.
You text DC on the 9th of March 2019. Hey, all sweet down there. See that? Text number 90.
Yes.
The losers up here are being nice to each other while we're around. I'm hotspotting off my police iPad, so we'll have reception a fair bit. Where were you when you sent that text?
I'm unsure.
You were obviously at a bush community, is that right?
Potentially.
Well, if you have a look at the next text message, I think you can figure it out.
Yes.
You're at Borroloola.
Yes.
That's a message that you sent to somebody whose name begins with R, female friend,
Yes.
where you sent her Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life, or a photo of it. You were reading it at that time.
Yes.
So you send a message to DC. The losers up here, in Borroloola you mean, are being nice to each other while we're around. Who did you mean by the losers?
I believe the people that were rioting, the either side of the community.
The local Aboriginal community.
No, just the people who were breaking the law and rioting and using violence against each other.
Text your mum, text number 92, nothing's going on, just hanging out for a few days, earning heaps of money. It doesn't sound like there was much rioting going on at that stage.
Yeah, correct. As I've said before, they were being nice to each other while we were around.
But you're still calling them losers.
In private, I could refer to offenders or criminals as losers.
Well, you seem to be referring to the community as losers in that text message.
I object to what it seems. That's her opinion. It can be put to him not as her
I think it
opinion.
has been put to him that, and he's rejected that proposition.
I'll move on. Text number 93, Mr. Rod.
Yes.
Send a message to your mum. It's
Yes.
actually good up here. This is the community we smashed last time we came up, so they're behaving nicely now that we're here. So big sleeps, lots of money, and also got time to work out and read, so I'm happy reading that book. I think you're talking about the 12 Rules of Life.
Yes.
Is that right? Going to start eating breakfast again, try it out. Looks like the psychological stress I'm putting on my body by fasting, which can be good, is a bit too much at the moment, with a bad sleep pattern making me a sook. So we'll eat brekkie, going to try some serotonin vitamins from somewhere, to go to get some serotonin vitamins from somewhere when I'm back in Alice. What that seems to make...
Sorry, it says physiological stress.
Oh, thank you. What that seems to make clear, Mr. Rolfe, is that actually the community was calm while you were there.
I object to that. Is that a question, or
Yes,
is that
it's a
your statement?
I'll make that clear, thank you.
It should be questions,
Thank
not
you,
yours.
Mr. Abbott, I'll do that for you. Mr. Rolfe, seems to make it clear, doesn't it, that it's good up here, that's what you're communicating.
Yes.
There was no rioting, was there?
Well, I think I've admitted while we were there that it was all good.
Okay. But when I asked you a question earlier about why you referred to the community as losers, you said that you were actually referring to the people who were rioting, not the community.
Well, we got sent up there for a reason. That a number of people were breaking the law and using violence against each other, so I was referring to them regardless of their race.
This is what you text your mum at 93. This is the community we smashed last time we came up. When was the time that you'd been out there before where you smashed the community?
I'm not sure of the date.
Text number 94, you send a message to BF. I'm out at Borroloola, a random community on the coast, because they're rioting. But we came up last time they did this and smashed the whole community. So this time, as soon as we arrived, they started behaving, which is cool, etc. Same message that you smashed up the community. You send to DC again on the 10th at 7 p.m. Yeah, too hot for the poor dogs you're talking about. Sick plan, Devo, I miss them. We smashed this town last time, so they're all behaving. So I'm getting some mad R&R. So that's 3 people you send a message to about smashing up the town last time, and now they're behaving. What did you do when you smashed up the town?
I don't think once I've said I've smashed up the town. I've mentioned that we've smashed the town, and that is in regard to, I believe it's been mentioned by, for example, Julie Frost mentioned it, that IRT was to come in with a zero tolerance approach. That's how we were used, as a zero tolerance approach to not accept any laws being broken. So if anyone did break the law, such as rioting, we would arrest them and handle it. So I'm referring to doing our job in a potentially zero tolerance approach. It's got nothing to do with physical violence or breaking anything.
Fair to say from these text messages, is it, that you had no interest in the community of Borroloola other than pulling them into line as a member of the IRT?
I guess it's actually good up there. It's actually good up here. Well, we enjoyed our time in Borroloola. We had good working relationship with the police station there, and I've made some very good relationships with the locals there for the brief time that I was there.
Text number 100 to DC, you say this, the community, last line, the community is shit though, so it would be good to go back to Alice. That's what you thought of the community of Borroloola as a police officer, didn't you?
Well, I wouldn't want to live in Borroloola.
When you first started as a police officer in the Northern Territory, did you expect that other police officers would talk about Aboriginal communities in that way, to say it's a shit community?
I think if you look at the state of the Aboriginal communities in the NT, the third world state of them, and the shocking way in which the people out there are living, it is a shit place and it should be better.
Do you remember the question I asked you? It was this. When you first started as a police officer in the Northern Territory, did you imagine that other officers would be speaking about Aboriginal communities like that? Calling them a shit community?
I hadn't had much experience with Aboriginal communities before this, so I did not have that thought at all.
Is that how you and other officers, constables, senior constables, probationary constables, spoke about Aboriginal and bush communities in Alice Springs? Shit communities?
Yes, they're in a horrible state of affairs, and they need to be better. It's like third world in Australia.
So you had no experience relieving out bush. You had no interest in working out bush. Your only experience of being out bush in community was as the IRT, and you formed a view on the basis of that this was a shit community.
I'm literally like saying that the community should be better for the people that live in the community. I'm saying that they deserve better. I'm not saying that they are shit. I'm saying that the communities need to be looked after better. That's what I'm saying.
I'm asking you this question. Is it appropriate, do you think, for a police officer to speak about Aboriginal communities in that way, even privately, or to other police officers, that it's a shit community?
Well, I object to this. This is a private text message. There's one example, and it's being used as though this is the way this man regards Aboriginal communities at large. And
well, it does seem to be, he's confirmed that He's confirmed that's his view of Aboriginal communities.
Yeah, but not, he doesn't say that he speaks of every Aboriginal community in those words. That might be
No.
the way he considers the standard of living that they are reduced to.
He was asked, is that how you spoke about communities to other police? And he said yes.
Thank you, Robert. Is that how you think a police officer in the Northern Territory should speak to other police officers about Aboriginal communities?
I think police officers should be passionate, as most people should be passionate about the state of how people are living in Australia, and I think you were twisting the words to attempt to make me attacking Aboriginal communities when I'm saying that they are communities that should have more assistance and they should be better by the government.
Sure, but Mr. Rolfe, what you're talking about in these messages, and you've confirmed you speak to other police officers in a way where you talk about Aboriginal communities being shit, is not offering constructive solutions or suggesting that you're concerned about living arrangements. It's dismissive and it's derisive and it's derogatory. Do you
Well, I object. That might be your view. That might be Councillor Sisting's view. That's something she can put in her submissions. But to spruik it like this, as though this is some sort of advertising campaign, in my submission, is the wrong way to approach this. This is not a royal commission into my client, although sometimes it sounds like it.
All those sound bites for the media might be interesting for Mr. Abbott, but what I'm interested in asking Mr. Rolfe is for his explanation of these text messages, giving him an opportunity to tell Your Honour what was meant and what was going on in his mind and in the police station at that time.
Well, you're not. What she's doing is giving a media grab with a whole lot of expressive words, which she says the witnesses' answers relate to, and they don't.
I'll just ask an open question if it pleases Your Honour.
I think that's a much better approach and perhaps we can proceed in that way.
What do you think of the use of that language and way of describing Aboriginal communities? Do you see it as problematic when you have time to reflect on it as a more mature man?
No, I don't. I see it as problematic when people turn a blind eye to the problems happening in community and the way in which these people are being forced to live and romanticising the notion. I see it problematic when you're trying to attack me and turn a blind eye to the problems out there.
Mr. Rolfe, I don't want you to feel attacked. I want to give you an opportunity to respond to these questions. You had started to feel pretty negative towards the Aboriginal community you spent so much time policing in Alice Springs. Is that fair?
Are you talking about Alice Springs
Yeah.
in general? Yes.
Did those attitudes seep into your treatment of community members when you had to arrest them on occasion?
No.
Cleveland Walker was a 17-year-old Aboriginal boy. Do you recall an incident with him?
I would say that if he's gone through a ceremony and you called him a boy, that would be highly offensive to him. But he is a 17-year-old Aboriginal.
The name Cleveland Walker. Okay. CW. The name I just spoke to you, it was known as the acronym, known by the pseudonym CW. You're familiar with that name?
Yes.
He was under the age of 18, is that right?
Yes.
Do you recall there was an incident where he was chased by police officers through the Todd River, Wills Terrace and onto Anzac Hill?
Yes.
At your direction, he stopped running. You say at your direction he stopped running and put himself on the ground, is that right?
I'd have to look at my statements.
You recall that CW ended up with a head injury?
Yes.
And he later complained that you banged his head into the ground.
Yes.
Did you do that?
No.
CW went to hospital and got stitches, didn't he?
I'm not sure.
Have a look please at text 182.
Yes.
Recognise that photo?
Yes.
That's a photo of CW.
Yes.
See him with bandages on his head?
Yes.
How did you get that photo on your phone?
I can't recall.
Well, you must have taken a photo of it from official police records, is that right?
Potentially, or it was sent to me.
Sent to you by someone who was involved in the job, is that right?
Potentially.
Well, it must have ended up in your phone in a way that was unauthorised in terms of the police guidelines about the use of evidence, wasn't it?
I'm not particularly aware. There is a chance that was used for, obviously, as I said, we've used our personal phones for work, identification of people, etc.
Why would you need to have that photo on your phone after CW had been arrested?
I can't recall.
It clearly wasn't for identification, was it?
I can't answer that.
I showed you text 182, photo of that person under the age of 18 with bandages on his head. Why did you send it to, I'll use the initials first of all, PH?
I can't recall.
Was PH a police officer?
Yes.
So that's Paul Henderson?
Yes.
Did you often send Paul Henderson mugshots? He would have been detained?
I'm not sure. You have all my text messages.
Did you often send Paul Henderson videos where you'd been in some hell chase or fun job?
Same answer as before.
You might have done. Is that right?
Potentially.
He was one of the guys that you were good mates with in the police force, is that right?
Yes.
Can I suggest, this is a question for you, is it the case that you were having a laugh about CW and the use of force in that incident?
I can't recall.
Have a look please at text 164.
Yes.
A few days earlier you text that person, I'll call her SC, is she a police officer?
Yes.
Sophie Campbell.
Yes.
You text her the same photo that you sent to Mr Henderson a few days later of CW with bandages on his head, correct?
I'm not saying that.
What do you send? What you say is this: check out Cleveland Walker's new mugshot. Ha ha. Sorry, CW. It's a non-publication order of that name.
Yes.
You're inviting her, are you, to look up the photo on the promise job?
Yes.
And she replies to you, this serving police officer, ha 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 ha. Those bandages, I wonder where they're from. ... I wonder what they're from. And then the next text message, 166. Clumsy boy he must be. And you reply, 167, 8th of April 2019, so clumsy, ha ha. Not much compassion in that exchange, is there?
No, there's not.
Is it the case that you were having a joke about that because it was obvious that CW wasn't clumsy and had fallen over, but you had pushed him, causing the injury?
No.
Your reputation at that time, Mr. Rolfe, was for racing in and using force to get the job done. Is that right?
I object to that. She's saying that's his reputation.
Are you aware of that being your reputation?
No.
Why did you suggest to Sophie Campbell, a police officer, that she check out Cleveland Walker's...
Sorry, CW's.
CW's mugshot. Sorry, Ronna. CW's mugshot and write ha ha so that you make it very clear that you're having a laugh about that mugshot?
I can't recall.
Well, have a think about it, Mr. Rolfe. Now, why would you do something like that?
All I can say is that CW was a recidivist offender who caused a lot of issues in town and was known amongst the entire station. And he'd caused a lot of he'd caused a lot of pain to a lot of citizens of Alice Springs, so he was known. So there was no compassion in that, yes.
Okay, so he deserved it, CW, to get a bit of an injury when you arrested him. Is that what you're saying?
I can't control that. I had nothing to do with that.
Why would you text another serving police officer to say, check out CW's new mugshot, ha ha, if it wasn't so that she could have a laugh that this young person had a head injury? What other possible explanation is there?
I can't recall.
Do you recall that this is a job where you turned your body worn video on and then turned it off again at some point during the job?
Yes.
Your Honour, I note the time. I'm going to play that video after the break.
Okay. We'll take the morning tea adjournment 15 minutes.
Supreme Court of Australia.
Oh, okay.
Coronial Court's now resumed. Please be seated.
Nora, I think we've got that body worn video footage ready.
Yes.
Like the incident at CW.
Your Honour, while this is set up, do you mind if I just apologise for what I said before and explain myself just a little bit?
I'm happy to hear an apology. I don't think we need an explanation at this time.
Okay, I think there'd be some background to the explanation. It's just super quick.
It's something that you can raise later if it's important or relevant.
It's important to him, right? Important to him as a witness who's been here. This is his second day, likely to be another 3 days. So I think I'd be obliged if you would hear his apology.
Sure, go ahead.
So yeah, I'd just like to apologise to you and Dr. Dwyer. Obviously that was rude of me. The reason I got worked up is not for the non-publication order. The fact is that this is being streamed and some of these civilians are still working within the Northern Territory and within bush community. And I think yesterday afternoon was very telling that there are dangers involved with being associated with me. So by reading out civilians' names unnecessarily, the court is potentially putting these people at risk. So that is why I got worked up. So I'm sorry for that, but I am trying to look after people. We have received threats on my life and people around me.
I object to this. He's given his explanation, and this is a soapbox now.
It's not a soapbox. The threats are real.
Okay.
Received threats.
If there are any threats to any persons arising from evidence or these proceedings, then I would urge anyone to speak to their local police so that those threats can be investigated and that people can be assured of their safety to the best of the ability of the Northern Territory Police. Yes, Dr. Dwyer.
On the ground. On the ground. Back towards the Anzac Oval. He's going through that school from the Anzac Oval car park. Yeah, go towards the RSL. Just cordon off St. Joseph's.
You'll try to go up and kill.
Control, VKM, have a new disturbance in the mall.
Mr. Roth, that was your body worn video, is that right?
Yes.
You can see you're chasing CW. At some point in time, you give him a verbal instruction to get on the ground, and he ignores that and keeps running.
Yes.
Is that right? You continue to chase him. You appear to go through a school or towards a school,
Yes.
and you enter the school.
I can't recall.
Well, you move a gate. Was that for the school? Where was that?
There might be a little building next to it, but yes.
So at that point, you turn your body worn video off, correct?
Yes.
And you do that, don't you? Because it's not that important to you to capture what your interaction is going to be with CW on the body worn video.
No.
So you said yes to the question?
No.
I
said no.
Rejection of the question.
Thank you.
You were working on that job with Sergeant Kirkby, do you recall that?
Yes.
Sergeant Kirkby turned his body worn video on shortly after CW was detained. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And immediately when he turns it on, or immediately captured on that film, is a complaint by CW to this effect: "I'm bleeding. Why did you do that? You banged me against the rock." And he's got a head injury. Did you cause that injury when you pushed CW over?
No.
Well, if you had your body worn video on, you would be able to show the court the body worn video, which would prove your version of events.
I object to that. That's a submission she can make. It's a submission that can be made.
Yes,
It's
it
not.
is. It can, but it's also a proposition that can be put.
But why? I mean, what's the answer? I mean, the answer is, of course, if you had your body-worn camera on, it would have shown what happened. I mean, the answer's obvious, but it's just getting us nowhere.
Well, it's possibly the next question that might be getting us somewhere, Mr. Abbott.
Do you agree with what your counsel just said, that it's obvious that if you turned your body worn video, if you kept your body worn video on, it may well have provided very important evidence that would exonerate you or otherwise, correct?
Yes, it may have.
But it's clearly the instruction from Northern Territory Police, or it was at the time, that you keep your body worn video on while you're in that pursuit.
Yes, I believe so.
And you knew, didn't you, that there was an option for stealth mode if you thought that that was necessary?
Yes.
And that would assist you if you're trying to catch somebody and you don't want to be seen.
Yes, and I hadn't received enough training to know how to use stealth mode.
Well, I'll show you this document. It's a one page, it's dated October 2017, Axon, How to Stealth Mode.
Can I have a copy of that?
I'll provide you with a copy.
Thank you.
Do you recognise that?
No.
It appears to, if you just take the time to read it, give pretty clear instruction, doesn't it, on how to put stealth mode on your body worn video?
Yes.
I'm going to suggest to you that those instructions were available to you, at least from October 2017, the date of that document.
Yes, likely.
I tender that document, though.
Yes. We'll get an exhibit number for that document.
You say to Her Honour, do you, that you deliberately turned your body worn video off on that job?
Sorry, what's the exhibit number for that one?
25.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yes, my evidence remains as per my statement.
Your evidence to Her Honour. Sorry, which statement are you referring to?
I believe I would have provided a statement in regard to that incident.
A statement to who
The police.
recently?
No. It was part of the job.
When you were originally did
Yeah,
it?
correct.
And your explanation is that you deliberately turned it into stealth mode. Sorry, you deliberately turned it off because you didn't know how to use stealth mode.
That's not why.
Why
That's
did
my
you?
explanation. My explanation was I turned it off because the red light, I turned my body worn off and my torch off because the light from both were giving away my position as CW was hiding in the Anzac Hill area.
Are you sure you didn't turn it off because you didn't want any criticism of the use of force that you used with CW?
Yes.
You sure about that?
Yes.
You can see how it might look otherwise, given that you were in the habit, while you were a police officer in Alice Springs, at least for a period of time, of not turning your body worn.
I object. That's a submission that the learned friend can make to you, but making these rhetorical statements about how she could see things happening, in my submission, not a proper line to cross-examine upon, and not a proper way of cross-examining.
Well, we're getting to a point that we're going to ask, I think, some questions that get us to a point, and then there'll be another question, and it assists me to assess his evidence on these issues.
But an introductory question that says, you can see how this would look, etc., that's not the way to ask questions of a witness. As I said, this is an inquest, not a royal commission into my client.
It's not for Mr. Abbott, with respect, to tell me, as counsel assisting, how to ask questions of this witness. It is not. Unless my question is improper or inadmissible, I can ask it in the way that I choose to ask it. And I press the question, Your Honour.
Well, it's got to be relevant to the issues.
In my view, it is relevant. His answers in relation to his choices about body-worn video, when to turn it on, when to turn it off, and to compare and contrast answers in one situation with answers in another situation is a relevant line of examination, and I'm permitting it.
I accept all that, but the question starting off, you see how it could look, is not what I resist.
Well, I'm going to allow the question because I anticipate that the reason it is being put is to compare and contrast with other answers that have been given.
That's the case, Your Honour, and in fairness to Mr. Rolfe, to give him an opportunity to comment on it. So I take it that the questions are.
Yes.
Mr. Rolfe, you understood my question.
No, can you please repeat it?
Sure. You can see how it might look in these circumstances that you deliberately turned off your body-worn video on this occasion so that there was not a record of the force that you used. And I asked you that question because yesterday you conceded that you and others in Alice Springs deliberately did not turn your body-worn video on because you didn't want certain moments to be captured.
Yes, I conceded that we didn't turn our body worn on so certain
Coronial Court's no issue. Please be seated.
Dr. Dwyer?
Mr. Rock, before the break, I took you to the text exchange with Sergeant Kirkby. Sergeant Kirkby was an officer who you worked with regularly on your patrol group in 2019, is that right?
Yes.
And was he someone who became a friend of yours?
Yes.
And he was someone you looked up to, is that right?
Yes.
And he looked up to you in ways too, didn't he?
You'd have to ask him.
Did you detect there to be a mutual admiration?
I think a lot of officers and senior officers would sometimes lean on me for support.
Okay. Why was that, do you think?
I'm not sure.
Do you mean emotional support or
Yes,
support of both?
emotional support, I believe. I wouldn't know how to provide them physical support as such.
I mean by that professional support, as in coming in for extra jobs and helping out, or being the one who takes a leadership role on jobs.
Yes.
So some of your sergeants, including Sergeant Kirkby, I think you're saying there, would lean on you for emotional support, is that right?
Yes, sometimes.
And would also rely on you to take a leadership role on jobs on the ground.
Yes.
And that, particularly in terms of your tactical strengths, is that fair?
Yes.
So this exchange in September 2019, where Sergeant Kirkby saying to you, sorry about the stress caused by losing my shit the other night. Stress you didn't need, you sorted it well, I just had enough. He was the second person to press my button that night. He's talking about a use of force incident, isn't he, with a member of the public where he lost it?
No, I'm not sure that it's necessarily anything to do with use of force. I know he gave evidence. I know he said that he couldn't recall, tell me if I'm wrong, this is my understanding. He said that he couldn't recall the incident and he was, I guess, badgered until he said a story. I'm not sure if he said it initially. He said he couldn't recall it properly, and then he said something. He was pushed into saying something. I do not recall what he said. I do not recall that at all.
Did you watch his evidence on the live stream?
No, I read initially yes, and then I read the transcript.
And so you watched his evidence on the live stream and then you went back and read the transcript, is that right?
Yes, I didn't watch all of it.
And your perception of it is that I badgered Sergeant Kirkby until he admitted something that he didn't actually do, is that?
I believe his evidence initially was that he couldn't recall what this was about,
Sure.
and then he ended up giving a version of events.
Yeah. Then he came up with a particular story in relation to an incident which had occurred. Do you remember that? Do you remember what he said?
I remember what he said, yes.
What do you remember? Putting aside what he said, what do you remember about this occasion around the 3rd of September 2019 when he'd had enough and he lost his shit with someone who was the second person to press his button that night?
I can't recall the job. Looking at this, all I can say is that I imagine Sergeant Kirkby arrived and said something unprofessional, and I moved my camera away and maybe raised my voice and put on the dramatic police voice to potentially cover up what he was saying.
You can't remember doing that at all, can you? You're speculating about what you might have done sitting in the witness box. Is that what you're telling me?
Correct. I don't remember this job.
Sergeant Kirkby could remember a job or purported to remember a job. Do you remember anything about a job in September where he, quote unquote, lost his shit?
No, but I do believe the job that he spoke about was never able to be located on a promise system. And I would question that if there was a job involving a police chase of a person on foot that I was involved in and Sergeant Kirkby was involved in, I would be very questionable whether Sergeant Kirkby caught that person rather than me, which is, as far as I'm aware, what his evidence was.
So because you're fitter and stronger than he is, obviously. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm a lot faster, correct.
Okay. So you think Sergeant Kirkby made that story up?
I don't think he made it up. I think he's under a lot of stress. I think there is a lack of welfare support in this Coronial for officers under a lack of stress and a lack of understanding about the hippocampus in regard to stress and memory retention in officers.
Certainly appeared to be on a lot of stress this night because he says, sorry about the stress caused by losing my shit the other night. Stress you didn't need, you sorted it well. And you reply, bro, there was literally no stress at all about it. I'm all for that shit. I've done the same thing to you more than once before. I'm always ready to make my camera face the other way and be a dramatic cunt for the film. And what you mean by that is that you're always ready, aren't you, to act in a particular way on film, or to use verbal commands or say something that tells a particular story.
Yeah, I think there needs to be further. Again, if this is my private messages. I speak in a certain way privately that I don't speak in publicly. This is gonna, if I was to say this, there have been lawyers act in a way sometimes theatrically. I think all lawyers would accept that, and that's part of your. That's a part of your job to act theatrically at times. For example, when you've previously read out my messages, you've added tone, you've added, you have, that's not in the messages, there's no tone in a message, but you've added tone, which I would call theatrical. In my private life, I could refer to being theatrical as what I've said here, as being a dramatic cunt. It is a difference in vocabulary that is not necessarily being what is projected, if that makes sense. I don't mean to be, I'm just trying to explain it, my use of vocabulary.
What you're indicating on these text messages that you were prepared to act out or act up on the body-worn video. You were prepared to say something to make out that the story was happening in a particular way.
I believe I'm saying that I could potentially raise my voice to cover up something unprofessional that's being said.
Sure, another, an alternative is, isn't it, that say somebody banged their head and got an injury, you might say on the body-worn video, oh, mate, are you okay? How did you fall? To cover up the fact that you or another officer had used physical force in those circumstances. That was unjustified.
No.
You clearly used the body-worn video or acted out on the body-worn video on more than one occasion when Sergeant Kirkwood was involved.
Well, the acting out presumably has a pejorative connotation, and I object to the use of that phrase. If you're talking about, should put it to him that he would.
Oh, withdraw the question, I'll ask it a different way.
But that's the whole point of this text message, that what is reflected on the body-worn video is not reality, but something that has been created by the police who are appearing.
Mr. Rolfe, text 431, let's use your words so there's no mistake.
Yes.
Don't let me suggest anything to you that you don't agree with. You say there was literally no stress about it at all. I'm all for that shit. I've done the same thing to you more than once before. I'm always ready to make my camera face the other way and be a dramatic cunt for the film. Ha ha. So on more than one occasion, you had said or done something on film to portray the story in a particular light, favourable to police.
No, I wouldn't say that. Again, I think I'm just offering him support in this way, that he's come to me apologising, and I am nearly softening letting him know it doesn't happen. I don't recall ever having done that before, and it's not about changing the reality. It's raising the volume so a private conversation or something unprofessional isn't said. And I've done it for private conversations, or for example, when my body worn's been on and someone hasn't realised my body worn's on and they're they're going to the toilet out bush or something like that, where there is no bathroom. I've done it to hide private conversations, which has also been used as a thing here when we've requested footage from you and Damu example. Private conversations was the example used why they weren't to be sent to us. So it's a reason that we try to hide private conversations from PSC, for example.
Mr. Rolfe, if unjustified, and you have a conversation on the film to try and cover that unjustified use of force or present it in a particular way.
No, I disagree.
Or make the camera face the other way so the use of force is not captured on the video.
I disagree to that as well.
the use of force case note entry was completed by Sergeant Kirkby. You could count on him, couldn't you, to complete the use of force entry form in a way that exonerated you or painted you in a good light?
I'm not sure. I don't think that's the right way of putting it at all. I just think he would have written down what happened.
Sergeant Kirkby's not going to dog on you, is he? Not going to snitch on you, in your words.
If I'd done the wrong thing, Sergeant Kirkby would stand up and say that I'd done the wrong thing.
Is that a serious answer in circumstances where you've texted each other on the 3rd of September, where you offer to him, he thanks you firstly for sorting out the stress he caused by losing his ship, and you reply saying there was literally no stress, I'm all for that ship, I've done the same thing to you more than once, I'm ready to turn my camera to face the other way.
I'm ready
You're not
to
seriously
make,
suggesting,
I'm
I
ready to
haven't
make,
finished my question.
I'm ready to make my camera, not turn my camera.
Thank you. I'm always
Thank
ready
you.
to make my camera face the other way and be a dramatic cunt for the film. You're not seriously suggesting, are you, that a sergeant who you exchange that message with is going to hold you to account for a use of force as well?
Yes, he would have. For use of force, yes, he would have.
And Senior Sergeant Gall then did a further check of that use of case note entry. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I believe so.
Do you think he would hold you to account for a use of force that he didn't approve of?
Sergeant Gall definitely would.
And he would interrogate it fully, would he? Do you expect that?
He would do his best.
You think he'd accept your opinion over the opinion of an Aboriginal person?
I don't think race would come into it at all.
Sergeant Gall, did you listen to his evidence?
I've skimmed most of the transcripts.
Sergeant Gall gave evidence that he would give your use of force case note entries the tick of approval without taking into account the version of the Aboriginal person who had made the complaint against you. That's transcript 2965. Are you aware of that?
Well, I object to it. What relevance does someone else's evidence have? I mean, the fact that Sergeant Gore has given evidence, in my respectful submission, has got nothing to do with my client. It's been put to him as though he's somehow responsible for Sergeant Gore's.
Perhaps my little friend could listen to the next question. You could count on that, couldn't you? Were you aware of that? That Sergeant Gore would sign off on your use of form complaints, because use of force case note entries, because he would take into account your version of events without taking into account the version of an Aboriginal person. Did you think that was possible?
I object to this. The proper way to put this is to put a paragraph from Sergeant Gore's evidence and say, do you agree with it? The way this process
Let's do that.
Sergeant Gore gave evidence that he would, it's transcript 2965. Okay. I'm reading from an examination conducted by Mr. Bolton, and Sergeant Gall is asked in relation to signing off on this use of force form, or the audit of the use of force form. Mr. Bolton says, when you were asked this morning about why it is that you concluded in the audit, and now it seems you also concluded in the complaints resolution process investigation, that Mr. Rolfe had not used excessive force in this incident, you suggested that there was really only one version. That was Mr. Rolfe's. There was a contrary view here, Mr. Bolton suggests, that was evident from the complaint in the video at least, right? And Sergeant Gall says, correct, yes.
What page is this?
2983. And then the question's asked, why didn't you tell him? Why didn't you ask him to tell you what happened? And Sergeant Gall says, look, from reflection, it's something that I should have done, Your Honour. I should have asked him for his version. And when he's returned to the question is, why didn't you? And he says, because I took Constable Rolf's version as being the accurate version. He's asked, because he's a police officer? Yes, possibly yes. You could count on Senior Sergeant Gall, couldn't you, to take your version of events as being the correct version? Do you agree with that?
No, I couldn't. I'd probably be remiss if I didn't raise it. If you quite offended at the implication that race was involved in some way or another, where I don't think that was shown in that evidence at all. But no is the answer to that question. And I would highlight that race would have nothing to do with what he did.
My question is for you and what you could expect. You could expect at that time that Sergeant Kirkby would cover for you and you would cover for him in circumstances where you were unprofessional in your voice commands or with your use of force. Do you accept that?
No.
And the second suggestion is that you could count, I'm not suggesting that Senior Sergeant Gall did anything deliberately wrong or suspected excessive use of force. It's not a criticism of him. My question is for you, that I'm suggesting to you, could expect at that time that he would accept your version of events over somebody who you had detained.
I can't speak on behalf of that. I didn't expect that of him.
Around this time, we're talking April 2019, there are various text messages, aren't there, that involve you joking or boasting about the use of force.
Isn't this September 2019 we were at?
April 2019.
What text?
Let me take you to 172.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were at 4:30 still.
No, if you could go back to 172, please. I moved to 4:30 because that was the camera.
And for my clarification, since I haven't read the transcript, when my learned friend says about this time, is she referring to the time of the Cleveland Walker incident?
She's talking about April 2019.
CW.
Text 172, this is the day after, I should say, that you were texting Sophie Campbell to say check out Cleveland Walk, CW's mugshot, ha ha, etc. So the day after that, the same officer, Sophie Campbell, texts you on the 9th of April, I'm so sick of Aboriginals tonight, fuck, with lots of Ks. And then you text back, they being losers. You're referring there to Aboriginal people, which she's noted.
Yes, and this is probably an example of that racist language that became normalised in this station. But I know her, and I know she wasn't obviously talking about an entirety of a race. I knew she was talking about a specific people involved in the jobs that she was talking about, that she'd had involvement with. She was talking about specific people.
Okay, but that sounds like you're conceding that that is racist and inappropriate.
Yes, yes.
She goes on to message you, just had a chick lying the whole time, I don't know him, then her kid has the same last name, oh no relation, then fucking look her up and they're husband and wife. So we laid into her and she stuck to it. And she sends another message. And I may have been super hangry. That term is slang for hungry and angry, correct?
Yes.
And you reply at 8:49, text 176, hate that. Oi, if you're hungry, you're definitely allowed to towel locals up. And she replies, if your last name rhymes with Ulf, you're allowed to towel up locals. And you reply, I do have a licence to towel locals. I like it. The term toweling up is a colloquial expression, isn't it, for a severe physical beating?
I can't count on the severity, but yes, for a physical beating, yes.
And is that how you meant it?
I guess we're just talking shit.
What do you think about the level of professionalism involved in talking shit like that to another police officer who's dealing with Aboriginal people?
I think private conversations like this are used as a venting capacity so police officers can work on shift professionally in their interactions with public. this is a method where police officers can vent their frustrations between each other, so then they don't vent their frustrations in their interactions with the public. So I would say that the language is, as I've said before, is racist and should not be used. We should do better, but the idea of the venting between police officers is I would say it's a very healthy thing.
So you think it's healthy to have this exchange where you're talking to another another constable, where you say, or if you're hungry, you're definitely allowed to towel locals up. And she says, if your last name rhymes with if you're allowed to towel locals up. And you say, I do have a licence to towel locals, I like it. You think that's a healthy exchange with another police officer in the Northern Territory?
We're venting privately so that in our interactions with members of the public, our frustrations don't leak out.
I just took you to an exchange with Sergeant Kirkby, which was a classic example, can I suggest to you, of when his frustration had leaked out
Yeah, correct. So
in
Sergeant,
an incident with a member of the public,
so
where he lost his shit, quote unquote.
So he may have had to do more venting to prevent that prior. So maybe there was a requirement for more venting or more outlets.
If only he'd just texted another police officer a bit more about toweling up locals and making another joke about that, he might have avoided actually losing his shit towards a member of the public. Is that what you're suggesting?
I've already conceded that the language should be better, but yes, if he had other mechanisms for, as a lot of police officers, if he's had other mechanisms of healthy outlets, one of the healthy outlets is police's private conversations.
I'm not suggesting to you that there don't need to be more healthy outlets. I think you've given some useful suggestion to Her Honour about how police might be assisted in their job in terms of stress relief or having a break from the hard grind. But can I ask you to reflect on this? It's not a healthy outlet, is it, for two young officers to be texting each other about toweling up locals?
Again, the race should never have been brought into it. I am not going to concede that private conversations between officers is an unhealthy. I think it's necessary, and I think it should not be. I think this is a very damaging thing to the police force, and there's probably a lot less venting occurring, and we'll see how that occurs with the police force as we go ahead.
So you're shifting the blame on me, are you? You're suggesting that it's my fault for bringing up these text messages to you, rather than there being a problem with the text messages themselves?
I believe you're part. Yes, you held part of the blame. Yes.
Not the first time you've been accused.
You texted in this exchange, if you're hungry, you're definitely allowed to towel locals up, and the reply was, if your last name rhymes with you're allowed to towel up locals. You were aware of your reputation at the time for toweling up locals? Is that
no.
Your reputation at that time wasn't it, for racing in, using force to get the job done, regardless of the injury that was caused to the person you were detaining?
No.
Do you accept any responsibility at all for engaging in that exchange, which glorifies the use of violence?
Right.
So I withdraw that. Do you accept that exchange glorifies the use of violence?
It's a meaningless exchange. I don't accept that.
Do you see a level of arrogance in the young man that you were then?
Yes.
Do you accept that might have spilled over in your interactions with Aboriginal people? That you were arrested, who were the main people you were arresting?
No, I don't. I'm not aware of any instances where I've done that.
Do you accept that you had developed a bad attitude towards Aboriginal people accused of crime?
No.
Do you accept that you had developed a bad attitude, at least to Aboriginal men who you were arresting for alleged criminal offences?
No.
On the 12th of April 2019, somebody with the initials LM, Luke Madrill, was asleep at his mother's home in Charles Creek in Alice Springs. Do you recall that?
Vaguely.
That was a planned arrest, wasn't it?
I can't remember it too much.
Can I just remind you that while he was sleeping, you and a number of other officers, including Officer Kirstenfeld, attended the residence?
Yes, I vaguely remember.
Officer Kirstenfeld was a mate of yours?
Yes.
Is still a mate of yours, I should say.
Yes.
And he was someone who was on your patrol group?
Yes.
You did a lot of work with him arresting people?
The numbers are on the promise system. I don't know.
He was someone who you had a great relationship with when you were working, is that right?
Yes.
And for example, in the CW job, do you refer that Kirstenfeld was there?
I don't recall.
Do you recall at all with the CW job that were you pulled up at all for the interactions in that matter with CW?
I don't recall.
Go back to Luke Madrill. Mr. Madrill exited his home and ran into bushland behind Charles Creek. Do you recall that?
Yes.
You chased him? Remember that?
Yes.
According to a complaint made by Mr. Madrill, after running for a few minutes, he stopped and put his hands on his back and said, "I'm stopped. You can arrest me now." He said that you grabbed him, picked him up and slung him down the hill, causing him to roll 3 or 4 times to collide with a large rock. When he screamed out, one of the officers you were with said, "That's good. You got flipped. You think you're good." And then officers started laughing. Is that how it happened with Luke Madrill?
No.
Not one of you, the officers who were there at the time, had your body-worn video activated. Do you recall that?
Yes.
This is now 20th of April 2019. By this stage, there had been multiple warnings about the use of body-worn video, hadn't there?
Yes.
I took you to ones yesterday where back in March 2018, over a year earlier, there had been station-wide broadcasts.
Yes.
And you personally had been taken aside and told to use your body-worn video.
Yes.
And yet not one of you had your body-worn video on for a planned arrest.
Correct.
Why not?
Well, he can't speak for the others. He can only speak
Well,
as
he
far
might
as-
be able to. I don't know.
How can he
They
speak? How can he speak for the?
Well, there
why
might
the
have been.
others didn't have
There
their
might have
body
been
worn?
a conversation between them about it. He
Well,
can
he-
explain whether he can only talk for himself or whether it was an agreement.
Well, he can be asked whether there was an agreement about not to turn body-worn camera on, but he hasn't been asked that question. The question has been put.
Sure, Mr. Rock, why didn't you wear your body-worn video?
I can't recall.
Do you know why any of the others didn't turn their body-worn video on?
No.
Do you recall the other police who you were with that day?
No.
Was one of them Mitch Hansen? Does that ring a bell?
I can't recall the job.
Is it possible, given your attitude to body-worn video that you told the court about yesterday, and the attitude of some of your cohort, that there was an agreement not to turn your body-worn video on for the arrest of that young man?
I've never, that I can recall, talked about an agreement to not turn body-worn on. No.
Well, I took you to an agreement to act up for the film on the body-worn video. Do you say there was never a discussion between you and your cohort about who would or wouldn't turn their body-worn video on?
No, I can't recall ever having a conversation like that.
You agreed with me that this was a planned arrest for this young man?
Yes, I think there was a vague plan.
There was no excuse for not turning your body-worn video on in those circumstances, was there?
Again, I can't recall why we didn't do it.
You can't think of an excuse sitting there in the witness box.
No.
Can you have a look at, please, at text message 187? Ms Walls corrects me, Mr Rolfe. We have body-worn video for you for Mr Madrill, but it commences after he's been detained.
Okay, so that may have been an issue of forgetting to turn it on.
For a planned arrest?
I think when you're mentioning a planned arrest, it's not a, for example, like a written plan. It would just be a on-the-go plan.
You had plenty of opportunity to turn your body-worn video on prior to the arrest of Luke Madrill.
Yes.
And there is no excuse for not doing so, is there?
No, not that I can think of.
Could you have a look, please, at text 187?
Yes.
And Dave Munro is another police officer, is that right?
Yes.
And he texts you, hey mate, just a heads up, old mate was complaining about being chucked down a hill and said he was going to tell his lawyer, had some knee pain, didn't want to speak with us about it, hurts letting you know. Now, he later clarifies that he meant to say just letting you know instead of hurts letting you know.
Yes.
And you reply, thanks brother, expected it. You expected a complaint from Luke Madrill on that night.
Was he a youth?
No, he was 18 years old.
Oh, okay, yes. I think that may have been the time about where, I think it's been mentioned before, Sophie Trevitt may have been at Naja. We had recidivist complaints coming from Naja. And basically, whenever we arrested anyone, we would be getting complaints. So I'd expect, if I arrested anyone, I'd expect a complaint.
Didn't trouble you to have a complaint in those circumstances then, is that right?
It didn't trouble me when I had hadn't done anything. Obviously, the wrong thing here I'd done is body worn video, but nothing else.
I'm told that the complaint didn't come from Sophie Trevitt in relation to this matter. Is it the case that you expected a complaint from Luke Madrill because you knew that you had treated him roughly in those circumstances?
No.
You knew you used excessive force in those circumstances?
No.
You just said, I think, I'll draw that. I asked you the question, you were troubled by a complaint? Did it worry you that this young man of 18 years old was going to make a complaint that you used excessive force?
Not really. I believe he had no injuries, no cuts or abrasions or lacerations, and you'd expect some from being flung down a hill and rolling multiple times on rocks, etc.
Well, it appears he complained to police that he had knee pain.
Correct, and I don't think I just need to repeat what I just said. Yes, that doesn't necessarily mean there's any lacerations or...
By that time, had you at any time been spoken to by any of your superiors, and by that I mean sergeants, senior sergeants, superintendents, anyone above you in rank, that they were concerned with the number of force complaints that you had against you?
Never.
On the 11th of January 2018, you arrested Malcolm Ryder. I dealt with the body-worn video issue yesterday.
Yes.
There were 5 officers involved, I think, in that arrest. Do you recall that?
Yes.
2 of them were your good mates, Zendelli and Boney.
Yes.
The matter went to hearing in 2018 and you gave evidence on oath, is that right?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder was found not guilty, you recall that?
Yes.
Did you read the decision of Judge Borchers in that matter?
Yes, I did.
When did you first read that?
I can't recall.
If I tell you that the decision was released on the 9th of May 2019, are you able to say roughly how soon after that you read that decision?
Very soon after that.
How was it brought to your attention?
I can't recall.
Were you concerned when you read the decision?
From Judge Borchers, not at all.
It didn't trouble you at all that a judicial officer in the Northern Territory had made findings against you that you firstly lied and secondly assaulted someone?
Yes, and I believe the sentiment was shared by those on the ground floor, at least.
Sorry, I can't hear what the witness is saying.
Sorry, just the computer. Spillage.
Okay. I'm not accusing anyone, I just want to hear what he's saying about Judge Borchers.
Sorry, Mr. Welch, please go on.
Sorry, the sentiment that I had was shared amongst at least the ground floor of the people that were aware of the complaint in the station. Judge Borchers had a history of making, I would say, outrageous comments in his court findings, racist comments about Indigenous people abandoning their babies, being primitive-like and dragging their women out of caves. I believe he mentioned or pondered whether there'd be an anthropological issue that would describe why Indigenous people abandon their children so often. He was basically known as a judge in the courts here that made outrageous comments, and I believe he was called to be removed from the bench a number of times. And because we didn't put much weight on any of the comments he'd made previously like that. He was known for making outrageous comments. We put this comment in the same bucket. I also knew that he was wrong about what had occurred. We had a junior, I guess we had a fairly junior prosecutor. A particular witness wasn't called that would have assisted us, and the defence lawyer was very good at his job.
When you say we put this in the same bucket, can you tell me what you're talking about?
Generally, the people that I was working with in the Alice Springs station.
Your patrol group?
Yes, potentially, but not. I can't speak for everyone, but generalising, yes.
Okay. You talked about the people on the ground.
Yes.
That would have included your mates in the police force, obviously.
Yes.
And I'll just run through them generally. People like Chanson, Kirsten Feld, Sergeant Kirkby. Is that right?
Look, I can't name names because it was so long ago. It's just a general thing.
Certainly, that was. Well, I'll ask you the open question. Was that the view shared by Zendelli and Barney, who've been involved in that job?
The view shared by them was that the judge had made his findings wrong, yes.
And in terms of the people on the ground, I mentioned a couple of constables. Were there also sergeants who shared the view that you had, that there was nothing to be concerned about in terms of Judge Borch's comments?
No one brought any concerns to me.
In terms of your response to the decision, let me just firstly remind you of some of the things that Judge Borch has said. At page 8, and this is in the brief of evidence if you want to see it, but otherwise I'll just read it.
That's all good.
It's 3-143 is the transcript. The bottom of page 8, he speaks first or makes findings first in relation to actions in the bedroom before you moved out to the lounge area. And he says of your evidence, in respect to what happened in those 4 seconds that Rebecca Hayes and Malcolm Ryder were in the rear bedroom at 3 Saltwell Street, I make the following findings. 1, I cannot accept the evidence of either Constable Rolfe or Constable Zendelli when they say they saw punches thrown by Ryder. Neither Constables Lorraine nor Girannis saw any punches thrown, and both were closer to Ryder than Zendelli. A body-worn video shows no punches being thrown. Constable Rolfe and Zendelli's evidence is wrong and is pure fabrication. Do you say that it didn't concern you at all that a judicial officer in the Northern Territory had made findings that you and another officer had lied?
Correct, I was there, I knew what happened, and I believe it's been established by Superintendent Bryson, who was in charge of crime, I believe, and Assistant Commissioner Bruce Porter, who was in charge of PSC, that they agreed that Judge Borchers was wrong. I had faith that what occurred would come out, and it seems to have come out correctly, that the police found that the judge was wrong.
The complaint hasn't been substantiated. In part, the problem was the failure of you and other officers to turn your body-worn video on.
I object to that. That's an assumption that the learned friend makes.
I'll withdraw it. Mr. Rolfe, part of what might have assisted you is if you had turned your body-worn video on. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
And you're aware that in the absence of body-worn video footage, it was very difficult to make a finding at the complaint level for the police?
Well, I don't see how he can say it's difficult.
Are you aware of
We're
that?
not in the...
Are you aware of that?
Yeah, no.
He went on
The answer was no.
Judge Borchers went on to say this.
It's probably just obvious, but I don't have a problem with questions being put. Your client can say, I don't know.
It's the inferences behind the questions that I object to.
If your client doesn't know, that's the evidence.
Of course, but
And that's
there's
what
a way
I'm
of
interested
questioning.
in.
I know the rules of evidence don't apply, and I've seen that. That's obvious in this jurisdiction, but at least there is common courtesy to be observed in the way in which the learned friend questions my client. I keep saying he's not a royal commission into Mr. Rolfe. It's an inquiry into a death, and we've been here. This is a day and a half. We're going to be here for a couple more days, and I say, Your Honour, that my client should be treated with more courtesy than he has been so far.
I found nothing discourteous in the way that he has been treated and the manner of the examination. Please proceed, Dr.
Mr.
Dwyer.
Rolfe, I'm going to ask you some questions after I read this to you about your response to Judge Borchers and whether you talked about it with anybody else.
Yes.
He says at page 12, he cites you in giving evidence, and he says, as Rolfe said at page 84 of the transcript, when Malcolm Ryder left the room, he needed to be dealt with because he was a threat. He now needed to be arrested, and he had committed an offence and needed to be arrested. So that's the evidence that you gave. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that, but I accept it.
Judge Borchers goes on to say, only Rolfe says Malcolm Ryder turned and faced him in the hallway and punched him. Only Rolfe says both he and Lorraine tackled Ryder and brought him to the ground. Constable, Lorraine's evidence is that this did not happen and he did not tackle Malcolm Ryder. Only Rolfe says Ryder tried to scratch him. Lorraine only saw Ryder's hands, arms raised. Ryder says he had his arms up to his eyes because of the OC spray. I find that Constable Rolfe's evidence lacks credibility. He lied. He has lied in a statutory declaration about what happened in the bedroom. Nobody can say how Malcolm Ryder was knocked out but him, and he surmises that Ryder may have hit his head while he was being tackled to the ground. If that is the case, it is highly likely that he was unconscious when Rolfe punched him in the face. It's more likely, however, that Ryder was punched first to the left eyebrow by Rolfe's right fist, and then he received the injury to his right eyebrow when his head was pushed into the floor. How the injuries occurred and in what sequence of events is more likely than not to be in the manner consistent with Malcolm Ryder's evidence. That is, Rolfe deliberately banged his head into the floor as he was being turned over to be handcuffed. He goes on to say at the bottom of page 12, I am not satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that Mr. Ryder punched Constable Rolfe in the forehead in the hallway corridor between the bedroom and the lounge room. I'm not satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that he threw his mobile phone at Constable Rolfe in the hallway corridor. On this matter, I accept Malcolm Ryder's evidence that he threw his mobile phone into the bathroom so he could use both hands to place them on his eyes, which were affected by OC spray. I'm not satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that he attempted to scratch Constable Rolfe's face as Rolfe was on top of him in the lounge room. Regardless of what you believed at that time had happened in that house and the evidence that you gave, I suggest to you that they were very strong and concerning findings that the judge made against you. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Were you then worried enough about it to raise it with any of your superiors in Alice Springs?
I can't recall. I wasn't worried about it. I may have raised it.
When you say you weren't worried about it, is the thrust of your evidence that you weren't worried about it because you didn't respect Judge Borchers?
I knew he made a number of disrespectful comments that meant I lacked respect for him in that regard. Disrespectful and racist comments. I found it hard that I could put weight on one thing he said more than something else that he said. And I had faith in the system that the complaint would resolve itself and the right outcome would be found, which it has in my eyes.
As a starting proposition, do you respect the important role that judicial officers play in the justice system?
Yes.
But you disregarded his comments because you didn't respect this particular judicial officer. Is that right?
I disregarded his comments because I was there and I knew what had happened, and he'd made a number of racist comments publicly.
And you didn't think that anybody else in your profession, as any other police officers, would be concerned at all about a judge of the Northern Territory making these comments that a constable had lied in court?
No, that's not my evidence.
It is extremely rare, isn't it, for a judge of the Northern Territory to make a finding that a police officer has lied in court?
Well, I object to that. How can he possibly know that? How can he possibly know?
Probably can't
He's
know
not, he's
that.
not subject to every
I'll draw
judgment,
the
but
question,
every...
Mr Abbott. I'll draw the question.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Mr Rolfe, I'm going to suggest to you that to have a police officer criticised in these circumstances, the circumstances that you would I would draw that. I'm suggesting to you that it is a matter of significant concern for you as a young professional to have these comments made against you as a judicial officer.
I wasn't concerned by these comments.
Okay. So what about Sergeant Bowens? What did he think of these comments?
You'd have to ask him.
How do we know what Sergeant Bowens thinks?
Well, I assume that she's asking in a reasonably loose fashion, do you know what Sergeant Bowens thought about these comments?
Well,
Given that they were good friends?
why isn't the question put in that way? Asking what Sergeant Bowens thinks.
Do you have any difficulty with a question being put about what Sergeant Bowen thought? I mean, you might say, I didn't talk to him about it, or you might say, yeah, we had a conversation, so I can answer that question. Do you have any difficulty answering that kind of question, Mr. Rolfe?
Look, I'm obviously going to back Mr. Abbott every step of the way. I am definitely on Team Abbott here.
All right. I mean, we can break it all down into one question at a time leading to a particular position, or we can ask you a sort of rolled up question which allows you to say whether or not we had a conversation and whether or not I know anything about what he was thinking.
Yeah. I don't know.
In the weeks that followed the decision made by Judge Borch as Mr. Rolfe, did any of your mentors or supervisors raise the decision with you?
Not that I can recall.
Did you raise the decision with any of them?
Not that I can recall, but it was definitely widely known.
Okay, and how did you come to understand that it was widely known?
I believe it was just talked about a lot at the station.
Talked about in your patrol group?
And others.
And so was it the subject of some jest or laughter in the station? Or how were people talking about it?
I would say jest or laughter. I would say obviously five members attended that job, or five.
I count five, but there might be right.
5 or 6 members attended that job, so it's a small station. So word gets around. I think a lot of people were upset with his remarks and upset that I guess the case wasn't put forward as good as it could have done. There was a bit of even regret on our behalf because we'd had a discussion between the prosecution and defence that Mr. Ryder would agree to plead guilty to hinder rather than assault, and we decided to go with the assault because we believed we had the evidence for it. In hindsight, it would have just been, I still believe the right thing was to push for the assault because he did assault police, but also he's found not guilty, so we believed he did. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. It would have been a lot less hassle if we just took the plea. There were some discussions about that.
It's in relation to that decision, there were 5 or 6 police officers involved, did you say? There were 6, Ms. Walls corrects me. So there were 6 officers involved in that attempted arrest or ultimate arrest, but only 2 were found to have lied, and that was you and Zendelli. Was there any discussion in the police station about the significance of a judicial officer finding that 2 young constables had lied under oath?
Look, I'm sure there was, but there was no. I can't recall any concern.
You've given evidence of a number of mentors, 2 of them are Bowens and Kirkby. Did you raise with either of them the fact that the judge had made those findings against you?
I cannot recall.
Superintendent Vickery was at the station. Did you raise with her the findings?
I can't recall.
And is it the same answer in relation to whether or not she raised it with you?
Yes.
Do you think that it would be a matter of some significance to you such that you would remember if it had been raised with you?
No, I'd say no. Yeah.
Was the transcript that the judge gave of the decision circulated on Instagram and WhatsApp and your phone messages amongst police officers?
You mean by him or by someone somebody knows, or by the judge, or by the courts authority, or what?
Was he aware
Thank you.
of it being circulated?
Exactly.
Perhaps a little bit. I can't recall.
Have a look at text message 261 if you don't mind. Sorry, I should have given the wrong number.
288.
288. Right. You see there that you text Simon Gillette,
Yes.
and that's the transcript of the findings of Judge Borchers.
Yes, I accept that.
And you see at the top of that page it says Zen. That's Jen Zendelli, a police officer, is that right?
Yes.
Had she sent you the transcript?
I would accept that she had.
It looks like it, doesn't it?
Yes.
And then you forwarded it on to
Yes.
Simon Gillette, another police officer, correct?
Yeah.
And then you can have a look at message 289, please.
Yes.
And Simon Gillette, what was his rank at that time?
Constable.
Constable. Had he gone through the academy with you?
No.
Were you senior to him or vice versa?
I was senior to him. We'd grown up together. We knew each other for a long time.
All right. Did you encourage him to come to the Northern Territory into the police force?
No.
Just happened to be there, is that right?
He'd done some previous work here in the Northern Territory in a different area.
Was he someone you were in the army with as well?
No.
Just coincidence that you happened to grow up together, is that right?
Yes.
That you were good mates, is that right?
Yes.
So he messaged you, no one can say how he was knocked out. It is, and then there's a quote from the decision, it's more likely that Ryder was punched in the face by Rolf. Fucking lol, LOL. He goes on to text, such mystery. And then another text, fucking dweebs, man, too funny, whatevs. And you reply, fucking dweebs, haha. Is it the case that you understood Simon Gillette to be making a joke because it was well known that you would use force in those circumstances? Punch someone in the face when it wasn't justified?
No.
Why was it so funny, the findings of a judicial officer, that you had lied on oath and assaulted Mr. Ryder?
Well, I object, he doesn't say it's so funny.
LOL, that's what that means.
Well, that's
So that's by Mr. Gillette.
But 292, we've got a response.
Yes.
Ha ha.
Fucking dweebs, ha ha.
Yes, so I'm sorry, Your Honour, I had actually thought that the words ha ha were intending to indicate something funny.
Laughter.
Is that the case, Mr. Rolfe? Let's just get real about what that message means.
So I would like to see my statement about the Malcolm Ryder incident before I answer further questions.
Well, I'm not asking you, Mr. Officer and or Mr. Abbott will have the opportunity to re-examine you, so they can take you back here. But I just want to ask you about this text exchange. Simon Gillette, a serving police officer, is sent by you the transcript. He makes a joke about it, doesn't he? It's more likely that Ryder was punched in the face by Rolf. He's taking the quote from the judicial officer, fucking lol.
Yes.
Such mystery, fucking dweebs, man, too funny, whatevs. And your reply is fucking dweebs, ha ha. It sounds like you just think it's a bit of a joke that a judicial officer has made that finding against you.
I can't answer the question without seeing my statement from the day. There's more context to it.
But you can answer a question about this text exchange.
I need to know more information.
But it's not about what you wrote in a statement or anything else. It's just a conversation about the transcript that has been circulated between two people.
Okay, so I won't get my statement, but I believe in my statement and my use of force, I say that I punched Malcolm Ryder in the face so it should be fairly obvious how Malcolm Ryder got knocked out. I think that's what he's laughing at. I admit to how he got knocked out. I think that's what he's laughing about.
Okay, well, I think the lunchtime adjournment's coming up, Your Honour, and Mr Rolfe will have the opportunity to refresh his memory from his statement. Do you feel that that's important for you to be able to answer?
Unless you accept that. Like, I think he's saying that. I think he's laughing at the fact that it's deemed that it's unable to be. It's a mystery how this man got knocked out when I admit that I punched him in the face.
So you think he's laughing about the fact that the judicial officer had said no one can tell how he was knocked out, when in fact it was obvious because you had already admitted that in your statement?
Potentially. That's what I think that's about.
Your response at 292 is fucking dweebs, ha ha. Who are you referring to, or what are you referring to there?
I can't recall. We may be calling Judge Borges a dweeb.
Well, that would fit with your contempt for him as a judicial officer, wouldn't it?
Look, as I've said
He has
before,
had contempt. He hasn't said he had contempt for him.
Well, doesn't it fit with your attitude towards Judge Borges that you didn't respect his decision making?
I didn't respect his decision making in a number of, as I said, a number of racist remarks he's made publicly, and I knew this decision was wrong.
And because you didn't respect him, you didn't care what he said publicly about whether you'd lied or whether you'd punched a member of the public in the face unjustifiably.
I cared because it's obviously, once it's on the internet, it's on the internet. But I didn't. I didn't worry that I would be found guilty of anything.
You didn't care enough to raise it with any of your supervisors or mentors or get advice about how to deal with it as a young officer?
Well, I may have. I can't recall.
You remember, don't you, that Mr Ryder was interviewed at the police station by two officers, Gerberts Fisher and Cabagnaro?
Yes.
And this was back in January 2018, before you commenced a romantic relationship with his Cabagnaro.
Yes.
You didn't know her at all at that stage, or you certainly didn't know her well? Is that right?
I believe so.
Did you watch the evidence that she gave in this inquest?
I don't think she was on stream.
Did you listen to it?
No, I didn't.
Have you read any of the statements that she gave in relation to this incident with Malcolm Ryder?
Yes.
Have you read them recently?
Recently enough.
You're aware, aren't you, of some things that she says happened, some things that she says you told her about this incident?
Yes.
I'll take you to those in a moment, but I just want to take you to some of the things she says that you might agree with before I take you back to some of the things I anticipate you might not. She gave evidence, and this is transcript 2754 to 2755. I'm just going to get that up. She gave evidence that some of the time, at least, she says the majority of the time, you did not have your body worn on when you were dealing with situations with the public. You've conceded that? Or you conceded that there were occasions where you deliberately did not turn your body worn on?
Yes.
She gave evidence that you got an email once or twice from Senior Sergeant Vickery, but you still didn't want to turn your body worn video on even after that. You would concede that, wouldn't you?
I'd have to say the emails, but I accept there were warnings.
All right. And you accept that there were warnings from Vickery, but you still didn't want to turn it on after that?
I was still a part of that culture, yes.
She says that in Alice Springs Police Station, she heard other officers using racist language, including coons and the N-word. That fits with your evidence yesterday, correct?
Yes.
She says that she became desensitised to that language, and that fits with your evidence too, doesn't it, that you became desensitised?
Yes.
She also says that you told her your view of bush cops, meaning community police, was that they were lazy. That was your view of community police around that time.
I can only speak for specific involvements. I know in my text messages I speak generally. I'm not saying all bush cops. I don't know all bush cops. Plus, there's no such thing as really, you don't join up the NT police as a city cop or a bush cop. But I speak generally. I have had a number of interactions or involvements where I've dealt with lazy bush cops out working out bush, yes.
But there's a number of text messages, Mr. Rolfe, aren't there, where you say things like text 126, you're texting Dave Munro, fucking oath, now the loser has gone out to Alpara and the cops out there will be too lazy to grab him. That's just one example.
Yes.
Text 428, you text Sergeant Kirkby in September 2019. They're fucking idiots prioritising lads that go out bush so they can be lazy and do no work. Text message 464, around the same time, Kirkby texts you back, everyone knows police go out bush because they're fucking lazy. Maybe that's who they're looking for now. Your preference now is blacks, chicks, gays and lazy fucks. Then Zach is commiserating with you about not getting into the TRG. So there are plenty of messages out there where you complain about bush cops being lazy.
Yes, generalising. We're not obviously speaking about all police officers in general. There was I guess if you look at the workload, particularly, and we don't know, like Alice Springs is Alice Springs. There's a lot that happens up in northern NT that I have no experience with. The bush communities up there.
You're talking about bush cops for the communities around Central Desert.
At the time that I was in, and the communities that we'd had involvements in, specific job loads, Alice Springs was a lot higher than those communities, and there was instances where people would go out to some communities, certain communities, for a slower pace.
So that certainly fits with what Gloria Campagnara gave evidence about, which is that you would tell her the bush cops were lazy.
Yes, I've said it, but again, I've stated it generally. I don't purport to speak for every single police officer that works out bush.
No, but you made general comments.
Yes.
He's agreed.
And this is what she says about that, what happened in relation to Malcolm Ryder. Transcript 2753. She says on the day that she interviewed Mr. Ryder, she was very concerned with his head injury. Sometime later, she had a conversation with you. She's asked, what did Zach tell you? She says, he told me that a detective upstairs had scratched him so that in his use of force documentation, he could say that's why he had used force on Mr. Ryder. What do you say about that?
That's not true.
So you just accepted a number of things that I've told you that Ms. Campagnaro said are true and accurate, but that one's not.
Yes.
This is what she said about your attitude to Aboriginal people when she was having a relationship with you. 2777. And she said there, she's repeating some of the evidence that she's given earlier. It's reading out to her page 33 of her statement. A conversation that happened in front of her friend, whose name I won't read out.
Yep.
But she was present and heard it. And you said something like, Indigenous people's heads are like rocks, like you can't break through them. Is that something that you said?
No, that's not. And that friend made a statement that says she's not heard those words come out of my mouth. The police have that statement. And perhaps you do as well.
She said, this is what her evidence was about you at that time. I think he just devalued their lives. She's talking about Aboriginal people. And I just didn't think that they were worth too much, to be honest. He just thought it was another arrest and he just didn't care really. She's referring to Aboriginal people who you arrested. Had you started to develop attitudes where you were dismissive or devaluing the lives of Aboriginal people you arrested?
Not at all. And luckily we have some evidence to suggest quite the opposite from September 2019, which I'm sure we can bring up later.
I call for the statement.
There's no request to call. I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this at transcript 2761. Ms. Campagnaro repeats a conversation that she says she had with you. She says there's a few conversations about going out and killing people. And Zach said on several occasions to me, and probably to other people too, that he would like to shoot someone, then he can go on a paid holiday. Because obviously when you shoot someone, you can go under investigation, like what is happening now, and you go on a paid holiday. Did you say anything like that in front of Ms. Campagnaro, even as a joke that you didn't really mean?
Not at all, no.
This is what she says about the use of force, and it's page 2762. It's quoting from her interview. So he loved arresting people. He was active, like he was good in that sense, I suppose. But he didn't care about or like any of the Indigenous people there. I know this because he told me that a lot of his unjustified forces were just swept away by senior sergeants that were in charge of him. Did you tell Claudia Campagnaro words to the effect of that you'd be pretty comfortable that your use of force would be swept away or swept under the carpet?
No, I didn't.
Did you tell her that your unjustified forces were swept away by the senior sergeants in charge of him?
No, I didn't.
Is that something you felt would happen though?
No.
I read to you what Alistair Gould said, that he would take your
Well,
evidence.
in answering that question, he's not conceding there was unjustified forces, which is implicit in your
Would you mind
question.
waiting until I ask a question, Mr. Rabbit?
I'm dealing with the last question and answer.
Sorry, okay. Just take a seat, Ms Dwyer. I'll hear what
Sure.
the objection is.
The question had the premise in it that he had used unjustified force.
It did. It was two premises, that there was unjustified force that would be swept away, and the answer to the concept of that was no.
Right. I wanted to make it clear that my client is not in any way agreeing that he used unjustified force on any occasion.
Thank you.
I thought that was evidence. That's certainly how I took the reply.
Okay.
I read to you earlier what Senior Sergeant Gould said, that he would accept your version of events, in effect, without getting a version from an Aboriginal person. Is that something that you could rely on?
I, again, don't think Alistair Gould brought anything up about race, which keeps getting injected into this line of questioning. But no, no, I don't accept that.
I just need to give you an opportunity to respond to what Ms Campagnaro said. You understand that, don't you?
Yeah, but where did the Aboriginality thing come in with Goldie? Yeah, has that come from you?
I think it's come from the evidence.
Yeah.
95% of the people that you were arresting or more were Aboriginal.
So, okay, I just don't know if it was put to Goldie if he did do what you're saying with the 95% and the 5%, or I just don't think it's fair to bring that up with him because it hasn't been brought up to him specifically. Goldie is, I've never seen him do or say anything racist at all.
I'm not suggesting for 1 second not for 1 second, that he did or said anything racist. I'm asking you what your perception was about whether he would accept your version of events over the version of somebody who had been arrested. Let's leave race out of it.
Let's leave race out of it. That's a good idea. Then no. The answer is no.
This is what Ms Campagnaro said about the use of racist language. She said it was used freely in Alice Springs Police Station. That fits with what you said, isn't it?
Yes.
She gave evidence that one of the officers who was using racist language in the station was Sergeant Bowens. That's true, isn't it, when you reflect on it?
No, not at all.
She gave evidence that one of the police officers who was using racist terms freely was Sergeant Paul Kirkby. That's true, isn't it?
No, I can't recall any instances of him saying anything.
She gave evidence, moving away from people who were sergeants, that one of the people closer to you in age and rank using racist language was Mitch Hansen regularly. Was that true?
Yeah, correct.
So, happy to suggest that Mitch Hansen was using racist language outside of text messages?
Well, I object to it. He's not happy to suggest it.
Oh.
He's not happy to suggest
I'll
anything.
draw it. Are you
Thank
suggesting that Mr. Hansen was using racist language outside of text messages?
Well, I believe he has suggested that he has in his evidence.
All right. So that's why you're prepared to say, is it, that Mitch Hansen's using racist languages because he admitted it. But you're not prepared to say that Sergeant Bowens or Sergeant Kirkby use racist language because you want to back them up when they say they didn't.
Incorrect.
Is that right?
Incorrect.
See, Ms Campagnaro says there were plenty of police officers who didn't use racist language. There were plenty of police officers who were lovely and very professional, and she specifically names Jerry Arnos, Officer Hawkins, Officer Ebel, and others. But she gives evidence that racist language was used freely by Sergeant Bowens, Sergeant Kirkby, and Constable Hansen. And I'm suggesting to you that those three officers whose names I read did use racist language.
I disagree.
Well, it's a bit of a coincidence, isn't it, Mr. Robb? You say racist language was used freely in the Alice Springs police station, but three people who didn't use racist language were three people who texted it. That just strains credibility, doesn't it?
I think if you, when we get to Sergeant Bowens' text messages, there's actually evidence to suggest that I can explain a bit more that from my perspective, I'd never heard him say anything like that, and I think the text messages can actually show that a little bit.
We'll come back to that after lunch, if we may.
Yes. We'll adjourn for lunch. It's 22:01, but we're going to resume at 1:30.
Wonderful, fantastic.